Hello, YouTube. How is everyone doing today? For this very chill stream, well, we're not going to do anything too serious. And I'm going to be telling you a lot of stories. I've prepared tons of things that the people that have been waiting for the Halloween stories are going to be very excited about, because you're going to hear about the continuation of my little forest adventures that some of you guys know a lot about. And I have also, like, just going through memory, I have something like, let me count for you guys. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stories total. So it's going to be good. Outside of that, we are going to answer questions. It's going to be a free-for-all Q&A where there will not be any limits. So any question you might have, I will answer outside of politics and shit-talking other influencers. I also do not want to do that. And that is that. I'm going to immediately pin the link if you want to send questions. There you go. Up, pin. And that's it. And of course, I'm going to read the chat all throughout and answer questions from the chat. Can I send dream analysis on Coffee? Yes, this is a free-for-all. You can send whatever you want on Coffee. You can send dating questions, self-improvement questions, whatever. Talking about self-improvement, did you guys like the video? Probably one of my favorite videos I made on self-improvement that dropped yesterday. How many of you guys watched it? Yes? Salam Okabe. Bonjour à toi. Should I be eating garlic if it's just toxic to our senses? If it's toxic to you, don't eat it. But that also applies to everything in life. Surprise stream? No, this was scheduled. If you keep an eye on the community page, you will never be surprised by a stream. Salut NH, tu manges des raclettes aux USA? Ça n'existe pas la raclette ici. They don't even make the cheese good enough for that. What is your favorite color? My favorite color is green, which makes no sense because I don't own any green piece of garment. I just love nature so much that this is the color of nature, I guess. How do I get sick less often? Paradoxically, expose yourself to the elements more, go out in the cold more, etc. What did you buy this Black Friday? Nothing. I try to consume as little as possible, and Black Friday is an excuse to consume. For some reason, the mic is like triggering me because it's exactly at eye level. Will you ever cover Camus? Yes, I will. Actually, I have a client that I teach philosophy to that we're working on Camus right now. Are you doing a physique eating stream again soon? I suppose you refer to a physique critique stream. Autocorrect got your ass. Yes, next week. Did you always want to have kids, or is that something you develop later on in life? For sure, it's something that I developed later on. It's like the desire to become a father is something that comes to you. It's very rare for like a 70-year-old to say, I want to be a dad. It's much more common with women. I've used Tinder. I've never once in my life used dating websites, ever. I've always met women organically. Even when I was not doing well with women, I refused to use these websites. I could sense that they were bad news. At what point should you make your own program? I always recommend people start not necessarily to make their own program, but to start tweaking their program as early as possible. So late novice, early intermediate, you already know enough about your own body to know, I like this, I don't like that, and you start changing. For someone to make their own program from scratch, I recommend late intermediate, early advanced. Is 1 meal a day bad for hypertrophy? No, not necessarily. What matters is you get your calories and your macros. After that, people talk about timings and stuff. Someone like me could never do 1 meal a day because that 1 meal a day would need to be like 2,500 calories, and I cannot stomach that in one sitting. How long should a cut usually last? I recommend talking to people who actually do cuts because I've done one cut in my life and it was a horrible experience and I fucked it up. So I don't have like what it takes to teach you guys. I can teach you how to bulk because I've bulked 14 years out of the 15 I've spent lifting. Jacked and Stoic, can I send a video for the physique life? I'll let you guys know on the community post. Are you half Mexican? Nope. Do I look the part? Do I look Mexican? How do you get through a bad day without falling back to crutches? Just accept that there are bad days, and that's already a huge step forward in life. I think we are very spoiled, and people always look at like their happiest, thinking that's the standard. That's not the standard. That's a deviation from the standard. The standard is nothing happens, right? Nothing happens is a good day. If something bad happens, it's a negative deviation, and that will also happen. And sometimes you even just have days that I call blue days, where for some reason your like hormones are tanking and you're not feeling good. Just live through that day. You'll feel better the next day. Thoughts on South Asian genetics for bodybuilding? Underrated as fuck, because they tend to have wide clavicles and massive calves and legs. So oftentimes it's dudes where you really only have to get them to focus on upper body and back, and they look tremendous. Plus, they tend to be shorter, which is an advantage in bodybuilding, and like what some people like to think. And so they're usually always like within the range of the perfect size. I keep like on Instagram, I keep discovering new Asian bodybuilders, and like they blow me away because their physiques are super impressive. And in bodybuilding, no one gives a fuck if you're 6'2". If you look good, you look good. That's it. Like just now, like an hour ago, I was training with my gym buddy. Came to my house. He's like a 6'4" ex-military marine guy. Looks very intimidating. The guy is like 200 pounds, but because he's 6'4", like his frame is like still pretty wiry. Whereas if you're like 200 pounds at 5'4", you're a tank. Yeah, it was fun. We did weighted push-ups. Also, it's interesting how every time I train with him, I PR. So today I had a 10-pound PR on a compound movement. I've been training for a long time, which makes me think that maybe I don't push myself as much as I think when I train by myself. I know in the commercial gym I do, but maybe my one time a week arm session in the gym, I'm a little bit of a pansy about it. So I have to train harder. What is your favorite piece of fiction? Fuck, I forgot the name. Ewilan. It's a saga by Pierre Bottero. It's in French, never been translated for some reason. Even though it's like, if it was translated, it would like beat Harry Potter. It would beat like Games of Thrones. It would be better than all of this. If it was adapted to Netflix, it would be a hit. But of course, it's French, and since we cannot export our talent, it's not going to be that anytime soon for some reason. Nate, j'ai perdu la flamme que j'avais quand j'ai commencé à m'entraîner. Maintenant, en bas, ça fait 1 an que je ne suis pas régulier. 2-3 séances par semaine, je change 24 heures de programmation. Bah, c'est ça ton problème. Your issue is that you're changing programs all the time. You need to stop. You need to find something that you like and stick to it. Will the Nobonaris ever meet up in person? That's a good question. I know that I live very close to one of them. The issue is that we're both extremely busy family men. And I'm also like a bit wary about like taking that step, because once you take that step, that's it. Like I'm a fitness YouTuber through and through. I'm collabing with people. I'm already going down that path anyways, but I don't know. Maybe I'm holding on to this mystery and this like individuality of mine. You live in China. Yeah, of course. Totally live in China. Bonjour, Chito. Bonjour, bonjour. Opinion on people who use super high volume over HIT. Well, the extremes are not always bad, but in bodybuilding, to me, 10 sets of one exercise and 1 set are 2 extremes that the majority of the population want to stay away from. You want to be somewhat in the middle. So you live close to GVS, right? Yeah. Well, do you get goofy baseball shirts like this? Goodwill. You go to Goodwill. Most of the things that you see on my body are from Goodwill. I pay $2 for them. The beautiful thing in America is that since there are so many obese people, if you're jacked, you will find a bunch of shirts that are like double XL that no one wants to buy, that are like essentially free, or they're like, just take it, no one wants it. And that's what I did with this. I love that shirt. All right, I'm taking off my glasses. You guys don't freak out. It's still me. I know that you struggle with object permanence sometimes, so. Boom, 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 boom. Up. Cleaning the glasses. Up. All right, so should I give you guys a little teaser about the stories that I have available in my luggage for you guys? So today I have the story of when I was living in a trap house, the story of when I was living in a mosque, the story of when I went back to the forest in Spain that you guys I know have been waiting for, I have a childhood story that's a scary story of not necessarily hallucinations, but apparitions I used to deal with as a kid. And then I have 4 stories on how I almost died. So I have the story of the riptide, the story of being bitten by a tick, the facial paralysis, and an accident that I got in Germany. And then I have 2 last stories that are pretty funny. The first one is why I hate New York City, and 2, why I hate Paris. And these are like the 2 horrible days in my life that you guys are going to be privy of. Looking at the chat, should I do what all of the streamers do, where I'm like, if we hit that number on the coffee page, I will tell that story? Or should I just read the chat? Paris isn't that bad. You'll see. You'll see. The mosque sounds pretty interesting. If we, yeah, guys, if we hit 100 likes, I will tell you the first story. That way it's free. Au KB, en fait, mon cœur et mon âme réclament de bons trainings en plein air comme à l'ancienne, à respirer l'air frais. Well, then train outside, bro. Train outside. Can you explain the paradox of why French people riot yet are wimpy? It's because it's performative. The riots make us feel better. Ever been to New Orleans? No, but I want to go because I love gumbo. And it's impossible to find good gumbo where I live. Mm-hmm. Yes. Also, chill stream or no chill stream, please stay hydrated. NH, what do you think of cosplay? One in particular you would like to do? My wife is trying to get me to cosplay as Crocodile from One Piece, which I think would be fun. I could also cosplay as Toji from Jujutsu if I wanted. Because like there's a bunch of like, I can of course cosplay as Miyamoto Musashi. I already have the cosplay. Yeah, because there's a bunch of like dudes with beards and black hair in anime, so it's like I have a lot of choice. Didn't you say your wife would voice a training log? Yes, but she's very busy right now, so we're trying to find the time. Are you short-sighted or far-sighted? I think I'm far-sighted. I see very well up close, and I cannot see shit from a distance. Which, by the way, is fucking me up because people in America are obsessed with these cars that have these like intensely bright lights, and I don't see anything when I drive. When I have someone like in front of me like this, I don't see anything. How far are you into Young? Me? I'm way deep. Us, as like a collective studying philosophy, we are 2 chapters in. Why did you keep growing your hair? Because it's still growing. It's the same question as why you're still building muscle, because they're getting bigger. Who am I to go against my own vitality? Thoughts on creatine from an aesthetic standpoint. So a lot of people report bloating from creatine while they have a ton of water retention. I personally don't. So it depends on like the experience. Also, some people are going to report hair loss, which is not great. I personally have never felt that. I've been taking pretty much like a spoon soup. Which way? Spoon soup of creatine every single day, and like I'm fine. I think it depends on how your like body handles DHT. High pulse versus power shrug depends what you mean by high pulse. Do you mean high pulse here into the lat, or do you mean high pulse with a barbell? If you mean high pulse with a barbell, power shrug always. Teaspoon or tablespoon? Yes. Soup spoon? You guys don't have spoon soup? Spoon spoon? In French, we say la cuillère à soupe. That's why. Spoon soup. That's it. We invented a new term. Spoon soup. Any tips for bulking? I struggle with appetite. What I recommend is drinking your calories. So a shake, heavy calorie shake with ice cream, milk, almond or peanut butter in the morning. That is going to already do a lot. And then figure out what you can stomach. Power shrugs fucked up my neck. Yes. The issue with like very heavy overload for the traps is that you can unfortunately pull something in your neck. Training your neck is going to fix that. Why no more blowhovers? Because I am a man of my word, and I said that if he left us noble Nadis alone, I would stop. And he hasn't done the thing that I told him not to do, so I stopped. What do you think about implementing an extra day to target lagging muscle group? For me, I'd say glutes and forearms. Forearms, I don't like this idea of going in for just like one muscle, to be honest, especially like glutes and forearms. If you do lower body exercises properly, you will grow a fat ass, like straight up. And forearms, just put forearm isolation exercises on your upper days. 100 likes, start story time. I think you're trying to scam me. I see 95 actually. People are taking away their likes. No stories for you guys. I saw you on a viral short. Please tell me that's a lie. I'm not posting shorts. I don't want people to use me in their shorts, please. Hip thrusts are not redundant. Erzoviac does them. I would argue that Erzo is maybe doing something wrong. Even though he is my little kitty, he can still do things that are wrong. All right, 120 likes. You guys are going to get your first story. Which one do you want? I will leave it up to the people. Is it possible to run a pause on this thing? Can we do a poll? Add emotes. Engage with your audience. I'm already doing that, bro. Forest, mosque, Whitehead Paris, the mosque, the scary one, the one with the thing. Yeah, you can do pause. I saw it border of Estonia. Yes, do pause. Yeah, you say do pause, but like I'm supposed to figure it out. You're talking about the guy who has spent like 10 minutes commenting to a black screen. Yeah, I'm just going to read. That's the poll. So far, the mosque is winning. The mosque, and then it's like the forest. Plug the laptop. No, the laptop is good now, but you're right. I should plug it anyways. He told the mosque one before. Yeah, but if you're not French, you don't know the mosque story. Voilà. You will most likely get all of the stories today anyways. It's just a matter of which one comes first. Okay, I think we're going to do the mosque. All right, so the mosque story. How did I end up in a mosque? When I was living in the USA, my first 3 years, I started in the dorms. And the majority of you, I suppose, because you're on that stream, who have watched my Halloween story know what happens in the dorms, where I had my first paranormal experience and I saw a ghost. Of course, I didn't want to stay in these dorms, so I left them. And the next year, I started living in a trap house, which was an improvement, but still shitty. And then the year after that, I moved to a mosque. But I didn't know it was a mosque. Funnily enough, that very place where I ended up living was foreshadowed to me because at some point when I was living in the trap house, a guy that was not living in the house stumbled into my kitchen, and I was cutting chicken at the time, so I had a knife in my hand, and I remember like turning to him with the knife, and him looking at me and being like, "Where is the mosque?" And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "I'm looking for the mosque." So essentially, the guy was just walking around looking for the mosque, and he saw my house, and he thought that's the mosque, and he entered. And what he found instead is a French guy cutting chicken. So I told him, "I don't know if there is a mosque here," and he left. But come to find out, actually, there was a mosque. Up the block, if you took a right, 2 houses down, there was a mosque. I just didn't know about it. So eventually, I leave this trap house, thank God, and I see an ad on Facebook, like, marketplace, whatever, of someone looking for a new roommate. And I see a picture of the room. It's very small, but it's very tidy. And it's $350, which is cheap as fuck. And so I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm going to take that. And so I reached out to the guy, we chat, and since I live like right there, I realized like, oh, we're actually neighbors. I essentially just walk there and I meet the guy. And the guy was clearly a Muslim. He had the beard and everything, the dress and everything. And so we meet, we shake hands, and he introduces me to the place. He introduces me to a roommate. And so if essentially there was a mosque and there was an auxiliary to the mosque, which was a house connected to the mosque that was like the mosque 2.0, where the people who used to worship and live at the mosque used to sleep. And so that is the place where I started to live. And so he gave me the room, and I was like, yeah, I'm taking it 100%. And so we start to live together, and no problem at all. At the start, everything is peachy, but eventually, I'm in the kitchen, and the guys approach me, and I can see that they're like a little bit like not worried, but they're like anxious about the conversation. And I'm like, "Hey, like, we noticed that we've never seen you at the mosque. So when do you pray?" And I look at them, I'm like, I don't pray." And they're like, what? I'm like, I'm not a Muslim. Did you think I was Muslim? And they're like, well, yeah, because like when we took you in, we asked you, do you drink alcohol and do you eat pork? And you said no to both. So like, what gives? And I was like, well, it's because I just don't like alcohol and I don't like pork. But in their heads, a guy in America who doesn't drink beer and doesn't eat bacon must be a Muslim. It's either fuck yeah America or mashallah, but there's no in between. And so I was like, no, I'm not Muslim. Is that a problem? And they're like, well, no, as long as you don't bring alcohol into the house and you don't cook pork in the kitchen, we're good. And I was like, well, okay, cool. No problem. And so this is how my life with these guys started. Now, the funny part about this is that I had two roommates who are like very like faithful practitioners of Islam. Well, they didn't drink alcohol. They were like very anti-Western values. And then I had one guy who was like the complete opposite. He was completely westernized. He wore jeans and he never prayed. And he essentially turned his back to Islam when he moved to the US. And that guy eventually moved to like Arizona to do his own thing. And he's not religious at all, anyways. But the other two, it was funny because one of them was a PhD candidate, and he was the funniest person. He was clearly autistic. He was like a man in his 40s, and clearly had like a turbo virgin, like never even touched a woman. Every time a girl would be brought into the house, he would leave. Like a cat, like running away from guests, he would hide into his room. And he was very cute because he was afraid of the dark. And so the issue is that our basement, the laundry was in the basement. So the problem is that the only light in the basement was all the way at the back. So you had to walk in the dark and then turn the light on. But the guy was afraid of the dark. And so every single time he needed to do laundry, he would find an excuse to bring me with him in the basement. He was like, my friend, come, I'll show you the garment that I wear. And I was like, of course, you're going to show me your garment. And then he would like push me first and be like, turn on light for me. And so so I would turn on the light and he would show me some random thing and then do his laundry, and that was my life. Like I would take care of him, and he was like 15 years older than I was. He was a complete klutz. He would like cook delicious, like he was from Bangladesh. He was Bangladeshi. He would cook like these delicious stews on the stove, and then he would get lazy and he would go take a nap and just leave the thing. So oftentimes I would get woken up by like dark smoke into my room because my room was by the kitchen, and I would like wake up in a panic and toss the thing in the sink to not like have the house catch fire. And as a way to thank me for saving his life, like repeatedly, he would feed me his stew. He would make like stew with lamb. I think it was incredible with rice. It was incredible, delicious cuisine, and I have never been able to find it again. But yeah, he was a good guy. He was also, as I said, a PhD candidate, but he was afraid of Wi-Fi. But he also insisted in having the Wi-Fi in his room. So what he would do is, because he thought that Wi-Fi gave you brain cancer, he would take tinfoil and he would make like a castle of tinfoil around the Wi-Fi because he thought it protected him from the waves. And I know it sounds weird because the guy had a PhD in physics, but like that was his thing. And it was a constant battle because it would fuck up the Wi-Fi signal. And I was like, I don't get the fucking Wi-Fi. Remove that thing. I never got him to actually see the light for some reason, but he was very nice. And when I would post pictures on Facebook, he would comment things like "very nice boy," "very big boy." Like he was very endearing. So that was the first roommate. The other one was a Somali guy who had the weirdest arrangement I've ever seen in my life. I think his family came from money. He was renting multiple rooms throughout the city, and he would only live with us like on Tuesdays. But he still paid for his full room. So I was like very happy to have him because it made me pay less. And that guy was like very strict. And I remember he would like boss around the other Muslims because during Ramadan, of course, I wasn't fasting, but the other ones were supposed to. And oftentimes, a few of them would cheat, and during the day they would drink these tall glasses of water with sugar in it, which I don't think is contained in the Quran. I don't think there is an epithet added by the prophet that says you can drink sugar water. I think that's cheating. And so the Somali roommate would catch them and be like, you know what that means? You have to add X amount of fasting days on top of that. It was just funny. It was very interesting experience. The only issue with that house is that it was dirty as fuck because it was like 5 guys living together, and cleaning was not our forte. There was like spices everywhere. It always smelled of spices and food, also because of me, because I used them. And we also had, oh yeah, that's also part of the story. We also had a cursed room. So there was a room in that house that we couldn't fill. And I understand why. It's because it wasn't really a room. The way it worked is that the mosque was here and our house was here, and they were facing the university. So that was like 2 minutes away from campus, which was tremendous for me. And there was a living room with a balcony facing the university. So that was a prime spot, but no one wanted to live in that room because it was not really a room. It was a living room that no one used, and the door was like barred. It was weird. And it was also very cold in that room because it was exposed to the wind, and it was a very cold place in the USA. And we tried to fill that room. Like, we would tell people, hey, for $200 you can live here. And we had a few girls try, and my autistic roommate was like, we cannot have girls in the house. And I would try to question him. I was like, but why don't you want a girl in the house? And his excuse was because they spend too much time in the bathroom, which was hilarious because that guy would do his ablutions before praying, and he would spend hours in the bathroom a day. So I was like, no girl is going to be worse than you on that. Two, he said, girls always have cats. They always have cats. A woman has to have a cat, and he didn't like cats. He was afraid of them. So he was like, no girls. And I was like, well, I don't really care. Like, we need people to pay that fucking rent. So I tried to bring girls. But every single girl that would come through, they would see me and they'd be like, okay. Then they'd see the other weirdos and be like, okay. So a house with four guys and I'm an only girl. And then I would show the room, and the room didn't have a door. So she was like, oh, so I'm going to get raped. And they just would be like, oh, yeah, totally, I'll take the room. And then they'll never show up again. Like, I even had a girl actually move her shit into the room and then change her mind and drop the keys, and she never got her shit back. So we had a bed and everything, like, ready for someone to move in. So girls, out of the question. And then we had guys. We had one dude show up who was gay, no problem with me, but a big problem with the other guys because they didn't know he was gay. And so he lived there for a while. And eventually one day, one of the roommates approaches me and says, my friend, we don't like the LGBT stuff here. And that was it. The next day the guy had to move out. I was not involved, but like 24 hours, it was like, you're out. Okay. And then we had another guy who was not gay, but who was schizophrenic and refused to take his medication. And that was something else. Because when you wake up at 10 a.m. with a guy in your door frame with a knife in his hand saying, I think the FBI is looking for me. And I'm like, totally, bro. Uh-huh. Totally looking for you. I believe you. And that guy had like, I don't know if it was his brain or whatever. He wanted to move to LA. He had a weird thing going on with his nephew where his family accused him of molesting him, and he was on the run from the authorities. No idea what the fuck that was about. He used to make his money gambling. He would pay rent at least. The gay roommate didn't choose to pay rent, but it was crazy. And the gay roommate was also obese, but like next level obese, where my room was by the kitchen, as I said, and so I could see what everyone was doing in the kitchen. That guy, every single day, like clockwork, every 2 hours would eat a full-size family pizza. Every 2 hours, 6 p.m., 8 p.m., 10 p.m., 3 a night. That's like 5,000 calories. And that was his night snacks. So I was like, okay, you are working really hard at this. Like, clearly you are very dedicated. Could you please stop spending your rent money on pizza though? Because that's getting annoying. Well, eventually he was not my problem anymore. Yeah, he was committed to the bulking life. 100%. So yeah, I think that's the extent of what happened in this house. And I only spent 1 year here. That's like contained within 1 year. So that's the mosque. I eventually moved out of the mosque because I moved in with my wife and her roommate. So that was a huge improvement. Essentially, my life has been improvement from improvement. I went from a dorm that had like a door, like just a bed frame, a metal bed frame with ghosts, to then a trap house that I'm going to tell you the story of. Then the mosque. Then I lived in like a tiny house, like in a cute neighborhood with my wife and a roommate. Then we moved into a house in the countryside. Then we moved to an apartment, and now we are into a house again. What would turn you Muslim? A revelation of some sort. You had ghosts. Yes. Should I tell the story of the ghosts again? Because I know that some of you haven't seen it. Maybe later, because I have a bunch of story that I have not yet told on the channel. You can access the ghost story again. Okay, which one do you want next? Let me run you guys through it again. But before we do that, let me check the coffee page to see if people have sent questions. You can send questions on the pinned link. Up. No questions? Do we have questions? Are these questions? Okay, we have JD. Hello, NH. My friends tend to reveal a lot of personal details about himself, especially about his achievements when he meets people, and he wants to ask if he should stop doing that or not, as he finds that it might ruin first impressions. 100% it does. When you start to blab about things that you've accomplished in your life when no one has asked and it's out of context, it just looks like you are very insecure. So your friend is self-aware and you should tell him to stop. Yes. We have Chris. Can you analyze my dream? I had a dream where I was a guest at your house and I met you. You ignored me most of the time and you are angry while talking on the phone. I met your wife and she was much nicer and wise, which is also true in real life. I have no idea what my conscience is trying to tell me. Well, there are multiple layers of this. First and foremost, you have a powerful relationship with me because I appear in your dreams. So that's one thing. Two, in your dream, I betray your expectation. So in your dream, you meet me expecting something and you get something else. You get someone who ignores you, which, by the way, is 100% in line of what would happen if you showed up at my house because I don't fucking know you. So I would ignore you and I would be on the phone talking to the police, being like, can you get the guy out of my house? So it's your brain telling you that you have to like reel it back and understand that I'm a stranger to you and that meeting your idol is never a good idea. And if you expand that, you would also understand having idols is not a good idea. You can respect me, you can learn from me, but don't idolize me because in reality, in real life, I'm just a door guy. Then you met my wife and she was much nicer. So here, this part is like to balance it out where someone that you did not expect to meet in your dream, my wife, ended up being much nicer than the person that you wanted to meet, aka me. I think that's what your dream is trying to tell you here. We have Joran Chick who asks, are you still doing split squats on belt squat machine? I tried them and really like them. Dumbbell split squats are good, but too taxing for me. Yes, I completely banned dumbbell split squats from my program because every single time I would get to 75 pounds, 80 pounds for sets of 12, and I would fail, not because of the weight or my legs failing, but because of balance. And so I was like, well, why am I doing this? Now I'm doing split squats on the belt squat machine with 210 pounds for each leg, and I'm doing split squats with the SSB, so the bar on my back, with 205 pounds, sets of 12. That's almost double the amount of weight I used to use. To me, it's a no-brainer that it must be done in that fashion. All right, if you want to send questions, you can send them on the coffee page. I'll check regularly. All right, so boom. We have the story of the trap house. We have the story of me going back to the forest, the story of the apparitions I saw as a kid, the 4 stories on how I almost died, and why I hate New York and Paris. Let me know in the chat which one you want to hear. Forest, trap house sounds good. Did your fashion sense improve over the years? What does it look like? No. When I look good, it's because my wife dressed me. I know it sounds a little bit childish, but she has a good eye. Forest, trap house, Paris. The Paris one. What's a trap house? A trap house is a place where people sell drugs from in the USA. Trap house. Okay, trap house. Forest. Okay, let's do the trap house because apparently a lot of people want to hear about the trap house. So, hey, let's keep doing that. I will tell you the story about the trap house if we hit 200 likes. It's funny. It's interesting to see the discrepancy between like videos and lives in terms of likes. Boom, 209. We did it. Okay, let's do it. So, as I said, before the mosque, I lived in the trap house. And just like with the mosque, unsurprisingly, I didn't know I was moving into a trap house because from the outside it looked perfectly good. And the person who owned the house was like a nurse. He was not someone who was like a drug lord. He was not affiliated with like the city underbelly. So I moved in and like I was expecting just a normal house because the way I moved in was I met a girl on Facebook who told me that she had a house opportunity before summer. And so when I moved, well, like when I went back to France and then I came back, the house was ready for me. So first thing, I move in and the room I was supposed to have is not the room that I get. Already fucking shitty. The girl that like got me in wanted the bigger room. So she put all of my shit, all of my beds and stuff in a smaller room. Turned out to be a blessing because the room that she was in was just above a place that was constantly in construction. So she had no quiet time at all. My room was very small, but it was very well placed. It was like inside the house in a corridor. To make you understand what the house looked like, it was a massive house, or there was a first floor with people that we didn't know, and that's when the trap house thing starts to come into. Then there was a second floor. Well, there were so there was a stair. You opened the door. Kitchen was right there. Then there was a corridor right there with one, two, a bathroom, three rooms. Then you kept going, and there was a fourth room. And then you would go up in the attic. There was one, two, three rooms. So that place could lodge 7 people. And the downstairs lodged like 5 people. So there was like 12 people in the house. That's a lot of people. My room was, you come into the kitchen, you turn right into the corridor. There's one room in the back, one room right by the kitchen. Again, I'm always given the rooms by the kitchen. I don't fucking know why. That was my room right there. And so I moved all of my shit. I do what you're supposed to do when you move into a new house and you want to be safe. You put your bed facing the door. When I move into, like, when I look at people's rooms, bedrooms, and I see their beds like with the back to the door, I'm like, okay, you have never lived through a house invasion, clearly. But I was on my guard, and I was right to be on my guard because first night I got from the university like a shelf that no one wanted, and so I pushed it like a complete hobo through the streets because I wanted to bring it to my house, but I didn't have a car. So I was just pushing it for like miles and miles and miles. And I got to my house at 3 a.m. because back then I was a complete night owl. And I pushed, so I put the shelf around the door and I opened the door and I went up the stairs to open my room to be able to carry the shelf up. I shit you not, I make it back and the shelf is gone. 3 fucking a.m. And within a time span of 5 minutes, it's gone. I knew at that moment that someone in the house saw me coming and stole it. So I was like, okay, great. We're starting on the right foot. That was like day 2. Day 3, I come back from grocery shopping and I have my wallet in my pocket. I go up the stairs, I put my groceries away, touch my pockets, no wallet. I'm like, cool. I retrace my steps. I cannot find my wallet. Keep in mind, I'm an immigrant in a country where I'm not like a citizen established. All of my life is in that wallet. All of my my cards, everything. I cannot buy anything without that wallet because I don't have cash. I only have a card. So I'm like, okay, cool. And I just like, of course, do the thing where I call my mom. She blocks all of the cards. She blocks everything so that no one can like steal my identity. And then I just wait. And what do you fucking know? Like 48 hours later, I go up the stairs and the door of the downstairs like unit opens and it's my neighbors that I meet for the first time. It's a bunch of girls. And they're like, oh, we found your wallet. And I'm like, really, bitch? You found my wallet 2 days ago and you didn't think of knocking on my door? And you waited that long? My ass. These bitches tried every single one of my cards and they all failed. And eventually they were like, well, that has no value. So they gave it back to me. So yeah, I was like, okay, I have to be on my guard in my own house because you people cannot be trusted. And the worst part too is that they met me for the first time there and they were like, I'm going to toot my own horn. They were all goblins, like all disgusting women. And they found me cute. So they were like, oh, would you want to hang out with us? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. aka never a day in my life, because you stole shit from me, and on top of that, you're not good looking, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I went up, and how old were they? They were like 21, 22 years old, and this was my life from there on. And that street I lived on was super fucking shady, where at one point I almost got stabbed 2 times living in that house. And it was always the same modus operandi, where I would walk down the street, and before going onto my street, there was like a crosswalk. And I remember, like, the first time there was a woman who was like turned sideways, so already weird enough. Why are you not facing the sidewalk? And she had like a long dark coat, and she was like looking at me like this. And I'm coming towards her, and she's like this. And I can see that she has an arm in her coat, like from the outside. And I'm like, you're going to mug me. You're preparing to mug me. Like, I'm not a fucking idiot. I grew up in Paris. I have street smarts. You're not going to get me like this. So I just crossed the street, and I just kept looking at her like, I see you. Like, just because you're wearing black doesn't mean that you're invisible now. And she just kept looking at me with like her hand in there. And then at some point, I think her brain short circuited, because she was like, I have to mug that guy in particular. So she took out a knife and she started to chase me. But I was already way too far away, so she couldn't catch me. So great experience again at 2 a.m. And then another day, same thing, same street. I'm walking, and as I'm walking, I hear someone come from behind the house behind me. So this means that, like, you have the street here, and you have a row of houses, and behind the houses, there's like these back alleys that exist in everywhere in the USA. The guy was like behind the house, like peeking behind the house like this, and he was waiting for someone to come by. And he came across, like, he came around the house to appear behind me, and essentially his goal was to like sneak up on me with a knife and be like, give me your shit. But the thing is that I'm not an idiot. Again, I saw him, and so when I heard his steps behind me, what I did is that I did exactly what he did. So I went around the next house, and I could hear that idiot follow me. So I just did one turn, two turns, then I kept going down, and I did the same thing with every single house so that he couldn't tell where I was. And eventually, because I didn't want the guy to know where I lived, this is in the USA, by the way, this is not Paris. Um, and eventually, I got to my house, I typed the code, and I got in just in time to see the guy like come across the thing with a knife in his hand. So good instinct. But I've always been a magnet for that type of bullshit. Like, even like when I used to live in an apartment, there was a trail. This is not related to the trap house story, but my brain is going everywhere. And you're here for anecdotes, anyways. My house was like connected to a trail where people would walk and people would bike, and it was very nice. And it was by a football field, a soccer field, where young girls used to play soccer. And there was a rumor that there was some creep joking off to the girls hiding in the woods. And one day I go back. I had a gym somewhere else, and I was connected to the apartment, so I would go through the trail to go to my gym. And I'm biking, and it's like 9 p.m. in winter, so it's dark. And I don't do what I did. I just enjoyed biking in the dark. So there was no like lamp or anything for me to see the path. And as I'm biking down, I see something in front of me. I see like a figure in the darkness, and I tell myself, is that a fucking deer? Am I running into a deer right now? And as I come closer, I realize, no, it's not a deer. It's a guy sprinting towards me. The guy was like full on sprinting on me. Like, he was like going through me. And I remember I squealed. I went like, ah, but I did it. I was like, ah, sorry, because I thought that I was the guy who was going to run into him. And when he heard my voice, he stopped in his tracks, and he like did the creepiest fucking thing, where he just lowered his head like this, and he like put himself sideways like this, and he was like that. And I just went past him, and I was like, what the fuck just happened? And so I go back, I put my bag back, and I tell my wife, and she's like, oh, we have to call the cops. We have to tell them. So I call the cops, and I tell them about it, and they're like, okay, we're going to monitor the trail. Shit you not, 2 days later, a girl got raped on that trail. We don't know if it was by that guy, but essentially what we got from the police is that he was waiting in the woods at 9 p.m. in the dark, waiting for someone to come by. And when he would see or hear a bike come, what he would do is he would run towards the bike. And if it was a girl, he would tackle them and then do the deed. But the reason why he stopped was because he heard my voice and he could tell it's a guy. And this is why he did that thing, because he didn't want me to see his face. So he didn't want to run away to not look suspicious, but so he like hit himself like this. That was crazy. So that happened to me. That has nothing to do with the trap house. It's just like it was crazy. And on that trail, another day, because then I was on my guard, of course. Another day, I'm doing the exact same thing through the same path, and I stop my bike because I can see that there's a big thing in the woods. And so I scream out, I see you, man. Like, I see you, fucking creep. You've done it to me once already. And as I scream, I see the thing freak out, go like, oh, and start like dashing across the trail. It was a bear. It was a bear that was rummaging through my garbage. And so when it heard me, it freaked out and it ran away. But I was like, God damn it. Imagine if I just walked up to the bear and it's like, what's up? Like it's actively going through the thing. It would have fucked me up. Animals are not to be fucked with. Just yesterday, I got bullied by a deer. A deer. I was in my backyard doing weighted carries, and a deer just like walks by my house. And I look at him and we look at each other for a second. And I'm like, you're supposed to run away. Like you're supposed to be prey. What the fuck is this bullshit? And the deer walked like around me and then faced me and was like, "What's up, bitch?" Squaring up on me. And I had a mace in my hand because I was doing like that movement that you do for the forearm. Like I was doing like this movement, and I looked at the deer. I was like, I, I'm the predator here. I have a weapon. What the fuck are you doing? And it kept coming towards me. I was like, I'm not doing that. So I actually got punked by a deer. I went back and I went under my like patio and I was looking at it like, okay, are we done? No, kept coming towards me. And I was like, you have a problem. Like you have a brain issue. I don't know what you want, but I will fuck you up. And eventually the deer just left and I was like, I felt emasculated. I was like, I got bullied off of my own land by a deer. So imagine with a bear or a creep in the woods, even worse. Anyways, as you can see today, you get plenty of stories, even ones that I didn't actually think of of sharing. So the trap house. Back to the trap house. So I got my shit stolen. The people downstairs are not to be trusted. I am now on my guard. I sleep with a baseball bat by my bed because you don't know what can happen. The reason why I sleep with this is because I start to realize that there are a lot of people in this house, a lot of them that I don't recognize. So oftentimes I would wake up at 3 a.m., like almost naked, to go drink water. I would walk into the kitchen to find like 7 Asian dudes cooking eggs in my kitchen. And I'd be like, who are you? Are we filming a Bruce Lee movie? What is this? I know none of you guys. And they're just looking at me like, we're here. Yeah, I can tell that you're fucking here. So I would just go to bed. Why Asians? Good question. I don't know. The guys didn't even speak English. I don't know. They were in my kitchen cooking my eggs. These were my eggs they were cooking. So eventually, what I did is that, because of course the food that I would put in the fridge would be stolen, so I would take it out, and I had a mini fridge in my room. I had to put all of my shit in my room because they would take my food. I was a broke college student. Like I used to make $700 a month. Don't take my fucking eggs. I was already buying eggs at Walgreens because they were cheap. So that happened. I would also oftentimes run into naked guys just running through my house because, come to find out, the roommate that got me into the house was a massive slut, just like using the terms here, and she would fuck a different guy every single day. So her Tinder matches would walk through the house. I remember one time going into the pantry to get like food, and like in my peripherals seeing like a dick and being like, what? And just like a tall, like Viking looking dude with his dick hanging out in my pantry. Like, what's up, dude? Really? Like, I'm trying to get onions and like beans over here. Can you not expose me to your chipolata? So that was great. Um, Something else horrible happened at some point where I had a roommate who was Latino and he loved fighting. So he would get into street fights. One day he came home with his face like all bleeding because he picked a fight with random people, and I had to fix his face. And I was sitting there like, I'm essentially these people's mom. Like, I'm taking out the garbage, I'm telling them not to eat things that are rotten. I'm taking care of them. I should be paid for this bullshit. And well, that same guy eventually ended up raping another one of my roommates, so I had to kick him out. That was a fun conversation to have too, to be like, okay, you committed a crime. She doesn't want to press charges, so I'm going to have to tell you to leave. Please. It's insane. Like, grad school was insane. I lived with just complete degenerates and criminals, but these were people who lived with me. Right? So far, it's people who lived with me. They were not actually the problem. The problem is that a lot of the people that would come through the house actually came because of the downstairs unit. Because the downstairs unit, come to find out, was selling drugs. And they were selling mostly weed, which was not legal in the state I was living. So they would either get people through their fucking doors and sell them weeds in their living room, or they had a window on the side of the house where essentially people would come around our house, slip $1 bill through the window, and they would drop a baggie of like weed. And that was like all day, all day. And so tons of shady people on my house, tons of shady people in my house. Again, I remember one time I'm sleeping and I'm hearing noises in the attic. I'm like, no one is sleeping in the attic. So I go up, bunch of dudes with my roommate, like bunch of like black dudes with my roommate. I'm like, can you keep it down? I woke. Tomorrow in the morning, I wake up. Can you stop? And I think I was shirtless at the time, and this was when I was like bulked. So I was pretty impressive, although very fat. So like they took me seriously. But that was the attic. Then there is the basement, and the basement is really where the story starts to become crazy. If you think that what I told you so far sounds incredible, prepare your panties for this one, because this one is insane. Let me take a sip. So, the basement story. We used to have the laundry unit in the basement, and it was a coin unit, so you would have to pay, which is incredibly greedy from the landlord, but okay, great. At some point at 3 a.m., because again, I lived around the night, I go down to do my laundry. And I take the basket and I go down the laundry, and it's dark. And I'm not afraid of the dark, so I don't care. I don't turn on the light. And I put down my laundry and I start to load it. And as I load it, I see on my peripherals things moving. And when I say things, I mean like black things that are like facing the wall, that are moving. And for some reason, I thought these are the lights of the cars coming through that shine into the basement, because what else could it fucking be? And as I load and load, I start to hear people talking. And I turn my head, and I shit you not, 15 people in my basement, all wearing black, wearing commando equipment with military rifles, all facing against the wall, so facing towards me, all black, so they were all African American, facing two of the roommate from the downstairs unit. And I remember, like, none of them paid attention to me. Very important for the story. They did not, like, even notice my presence. The two girls start a speech, and I listen because I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And eventually, what I caught from the speech is that they were organizing a chapter of the Black Panther Party, and this was like an initiation. And so the speech was actually very nice. It was like family values, encouraging them to get educated, and a big part was getting armed. And so it was like a ritual. Like, we have a term in French where we say like pas un bizutage, but it's like a ritual, like indoctrination almost. And so I didn't stick through it because clearly I wasn't supposed to be there. And I finish it, and I think to myself, man, first off, no one is going to believe that story. Like, I've told that story to people throughout my life, and every time they look at me like, okay, very funny story. Like, it never happened. I understand why people don't believe that story. I don't even believe it myself. But it always amuses me to look back on it, because here I am, some random white guy who stumbled upon a Black Panther Party like initiation shit with people with like military rifles, like, again, all dressed commando with like black beret, like with black uniforms and everything. And none of them even like noticed me, and none of them even said something, because they were like all so focused on this. And this was never mentioned again, because these roommates living downstairs, they tried to get me to make crepes for them, which I think is racist, to be honest. Just because I'm French doesn't mean that I make crepes. But they never mentioned it again. So that was what happened in the basement. Let me see, because now my brain is all over the place. What else do I have in that house? Wallet stolen, the Black Panther party, and the roommate that died. Yes, the roommate that died. How could I forget the roommate that died? So that fucking house. So I lived by the kitchen, as I said, and there was a room at the back of it. And the guy who lived there was a black guy. I knew nothing about him, and I didn't care. It was not my responsibility to take care of him. He was older than me. But at some point, he disappeared, and for a period of 10 days, he wasn't there. I didn't care. But eventually, I get a knock on my door, and it's the police. So first off, the police walked through the unit and then were looking for someone in my house, to tell you like how little security there was, that they just waltzed in. Everyone could come into my house. No, the code did jack shit. So they walk on my door, and I remember I was shirtless eating rice because I was preparing for a leg session. And so I opened the door, and there's the police, and I'm like, what did I do now? Like, I'm the only non-criminal in this house. What did I do now? And they're like, hi, we are coming to see you because of your roommates. Like, they've been reported missing by their family, and we know he's supposed to live there. And I was like, okay, I can't really help you because I don't know. And so they're like, okay, very nice. And then one of them commented on the rice, and he was like, oh, you're eating rice. And I was like, yeah, I'm a bodybuilder. And he was like, oh, cool. And so from that day on, I was known by that guy as the rice man, because this is not the only time that I saw him. The next time that I saw him, he greeted me with, hey, rice man. Excellent. And then he told me, oh, actually, your roommate was found at the bottom of a river. Great way to know that your roommate just died. So sadly, he offed himself. I don't know exactly what. I think he owed a lot of money to people, and he just decided to end it. Great. So that's my roommate that died. The other roommates in this house, we had a guy who was like a stoner who was always smoking weed. And because of that, he insisted on keeping the windows open all the time, even in winter. And I had this constant back and forth with him because he was pissing me off. I was like, you're costing us a lot of money in heating, man. You have to stop. And so I kept closing the windows, and he kept opening it. And eventually it escalated in him like taking a garbage bag and putting it in front of my room. And I was like, okay, this ends now. So I waited for him to come home, grabbed him by the shoulder, and I was like, stop. And I think something clicked in his head when he was like, I'm a stoner. I'm like 140 pounds. He's 220 pounds. Maybe I should be nicer. And so he stopped bothering me. I know that something happened to him, but things happen to everyone in this house. I think something horrible happened to him too. I think he didn't die, but I think he went to jail. I think he was sent to jail at some point. So that was that. The slut roommate was a slut all throughout. She tried to fuck me all throughout. My instinct told me to stay far away from that because she most likely had disease, so I never touched it. We had an African roommate, my favorite roommate, who was from Nigeria, who was studying biology, and who had the best bodybuilding genetics I've ever seen in my life. It's a story I told on the channel, but I'm going to say it again. This guy used to train only in summer. So he refused to train in winter. I used to live in a place where it was winter 8 months out of the year. He trained 4 months out of the year. He essentially refused to train more than 2 times a week. He would never stay longer than an hour in the gym. So his sessions were 45 minutes. And his training program is, or was at least, and I'm certain is, because I'm certain he's still doing this, he had a randomizer on his phone. So I'm not saying that he was pulling up a training program on his phone. I'm telling you, he had a randomizer that gave him random exercises in a random order with random rep ranges, and he would do that. So his days would be cable crunches, dumbbell rows, and then split squats. And he would do the bare minimum, never going to failure, grabbing random weights. He did not track weight at all. And he had a better physique than I did. He looked better than 95% of people. And I shit you not, he was stage ready. He was lean year round. He had 3D delts. He had massive biceps, massive. He had, like, look at my forearms now. Like, after years of training, his forearms were that size with doing nothing. With like jerking off, and that's it. He had massive legs. He never trained legs. He hated legs. He had like rounded quads, perfect glutes, perfect arm strength, A4 six pack without training abs at all, beautiful lats, everything. You see that, you're like, okay, yes, genetics do exist. That guy was like a 10. He was a 10. He was a guy with perfect lifting genetics who didn't care about lifting. So to this day, I guarantee you, he still looks like a demigod with doing nothing. The only thing he cared about, and the only reason why he even went to the gym in the first place, was to hit on women. And it was always very easy to know which women he was going to hit on. If they had a fat ass, he was all over them. We used to have a girl in that gym who we nicknamed BBB because she had like what is the term? There's a certain hormone. Fuck. Myostatin. She had myostatin deficiency in her glutes. The size of that ass. It wasn't surgery. Like, it was real. But holy fuck. It was too much even for me. The amount of black guys that hit on her was too funny. She was like a magnet for them. She couldn't do one session of squats without at least one of these guys coming through. And that Nigerian guy was like, I will make her my wife. He was on her all the time. He never managed because she was like ultra pretty on top of that. So she was a 10, and his 10 genetics was not enough apparently. But yeah, that guy was funny. He used to he was very funny. He used to make these like plantain bananas in oil, and he would scold me because I used to like remove the oil. I would toss it away, being like, that's not sanitary. And he would tell me, look, like my mom uses the same oil for a week, so don't you toss my oil, because in that oil there's good nutrients. Don't toss the oil. He was also making like full-size catfish in the oven. Like, his diet made no sense at all. But yeah, he was funny. So that was the story of the trap house. Now, what happened to the trap house? I don't know. I left as soon as I could. But I know it ended in catastrophe because everyone tried to run away, which is interesting because the person who owned the house knew nothing. Like, in this house, nothing. Is it racist to say that black people like catfish? I don't know. I don't know all of the stereotypes that you have. I know chicken and watermelon. Is catfish part of the thing too? The bananas. I mean, people from les dom-tom, like French people who are like of African descent, like they cook plantain banana. I don't know how that's racist. Like, bananas are great. Everyone loves bananas. Do you think he used steroids? Nope. I guarantee you that the guy was natty. 100% the guy was natty. Les grosses bananes plantain. Les grosses bananes plantain, mon frère. 100% he was natty. He was also, something else that he used to do that pissed me off. He would wake up at like 4 a.m. to go to his job, which commendable, but his car would be blocked by snow. And because he hated the cold, he would wake me up to shovel the snow for him, which of course I did one time because I'm nice. And then I was like, bro, you do it. I'm not your mom. I was literally mumming everyone in this house. But yeah, he would insist too. Like, he would be late for work because he was too lazy to shovel his own fucking snow. He would knock on my door for like 15 minutes. He should pay you. Of course. Have you ever met someone from Nigeria? Tight grip on many things, including their money. He wasn't going to pay me shit. I don't think he ever gave me food too. Like, that house was crazy. Yeah, he almost made me his slave. Like, he almost managed this close. Okay, so that was the story of the trap house. I think it lasted 30 fucking minutes. It was great. I'm having a good time. Are you guys enjoying the stream? Do you have any stories involving Brazilians? The schizophrenic roommate that I used to have in the mosque, who was on the FBI most wanted, was Brazilian. So I don't know if that's the type of answer that you wanted, because he was weird. Yeah. Isn't it crazy how a good story can make it feel like it's just like 5 minutes, but you've actually been listening to me for 30? So let me check the coffee page. Oh, we have a bunch of questions. Oh, we have a bunch of questions. Jesus. Okay, a little break. NH, what do you say is best for someone that's 12 kilos overweight, so roughly like 25 pounds, dieting aggressively for a short period of time or taking a slower approach? I've been lifting this for a year. The rest of your message, I suppose, is in my privates. not in my privates, you get me. I've been lifting this for a year and lost a lot of weight in the first few months of the year, but I recently gained weight because I tend to get really lazy when I get to the period of final exams. And I overeat like a motherfucker. I don't want to be a fat fuck anymore. What you need to fix first and foremost is your tendency to overeat, especially when you are stressed. You're eating your feelings, Maddie. So that's one thing. I really think that's the key, because it doesn't matter if you lose the 10 kilos, you're going to gain them again. And that can lead to an eating disorder. You can become bulimic off of this bullshit. So you have to fix it. You have to balance it. What I would recommend is taking a slower approach and then trying to stay at maintenance. Make it a challenge to stay at the same body weight. Once you can do that, then we can have you start to cut, but not before. Because if you just cut and bulk, and yo-yo up and down these 10 kilos, it's not going to get you anywhere. It's going to be horrible for your mental health. Then we have a message by NH Dick Sucker number 573, which implies that there are 572 people sucking my dick. I doubt it. What do you think about being afraid of the potential of machine learning as a student doing a master's? Being left jobless in the current environment seems terrifying. As someone who recently got fired and who used to work as a machine learning AI assistant, I can tell you for a fact that, yeah, companies are firing left and fucking right. The field is not what it used to be. And the AI bubble is going to pop very soon too. So I think your fears are warranted. Then we have Gia A&H. Can you elaborate more on why you think charging interest is bad? Obviously, usually defined as excessively ruinous interest is unfair, but I have a hard time understanding why charging a modest interest on loans is considered bad. Or you're getting me into a conversation that can get me in trouble, because it's about economics in reality. If you look at the state of most Western countries and the West in general, the reason why every country owes to the bank is because in reality, the bank owes the countries. And all of that started with interest. And at the personal level, it is also detrimental, because oftentimes, if you get a loan to buy a house, that makes a lot of sense. But look at the amount of loans that are not that. Payday loans, loans for consumption, like to buy a TV. These preys on people's tendency to want shit they don't need, then hooks them. This is why I don't like usury and I don't like charging interests. And you talk about the fact that it doesn't take into account the time value factor of money, which is also a huge problem with the current system, where if you had $10,000 100 years ago, most likely you would be extremely rich right now if you invested it. But if you have $10,000 today, you are poor. And you say it's an important part for efficient capital allocation, at least within a capitalist system, and thereby lays the answer within a capitalist system. In my case, yes, I would consider that bad. So that's my answer. It's just because I don't like the current system. I don't like the way things are being run. And yet I still pay into the system and I'm a slave to it. So make with that what you will. Then we have Legs On. Are you reading DMs? Yes. Roger C looks like a mutant. You gotta look him up. I know him. I want to make a video on him eventually. Okay, so that's a program review, which I will not do today. And then we have another question. Okay, well, so that's not really a question. And let me check here. And then we're going to do another story. Okay, that's it. I think I have a question by Abai. Abai, if you're in the chat or like in the messages, let me know if you want that on the stream, because you did not let me know. Okay. What story do you want next? We have, so we did both of these. We have the forest in Spain. We have the story of missing apparitions when I was a kid, the stories when I almost died, why I hate New York, and why I hate Paris. Do you have more spooky stories? I have 2 spooky stories. For those of you that were waiting for the Halloween stream, this is technically the Halloween stream. So the forest is the first spooky story, and the apparitions is the second. Can I ask you a question on relationships? You can ask all the questions that you want. The coffee page is open. New York, forest, karate man. That's not part of the story. Paris. New York, spooky, forest, Paris. Okay, let's do Paris. Let's do Paris. The Paris one is funny because you're going to see a side of me that you don't know about. You're going to see what happens when I get mad, and it's pretty fucking pathetic. So the story is why I hate Paris. It's the story of the worst 24 hours in my life in that hellhole of a city. So let me put the context. I've been living in Paris my entire life. 20 years in Paris, went to high school in Paris, went to college in Paris. I got my first 2 degrees in Paris, which are entirely fucking worthless because they're French degrees. That's a story for another time. And I had all of my friends there. And so in 2016, there was the European Cup. And the finals of the European Cup was France versus Portugal. And so naturally, I wanted to go see it with my friends, despite me hating soccer. That is mistake number one. I used to do things because I wanted to be accepted. I despise soccer. I do not want to watch that sport. It's boring as fuck. But I was peer pressured into going to watch the match. And they did a switcheroo on me where essentially I was told, we are going to go. Oh, actually, yeah, they told me we are going to go watch the match in a bar. So I would be able to sit and like have a snack and it would be okay. But last second, they decided they wanted to go to the fan zone. The fan zone, and if French people went to the fan zone were there, let me know in the chat, was a huge outside area organized by the city of Paris with a big screen to allow people to watch the game live. Just with these words, I should have been on my guard. Organized by the city of Paris. If you told me organized by a few meth heads who have like sexual relationships with foxes, that would inspire more trust in my heart than organized by the city of Paris. Because they're not just clowns, they're the entire fucking circus. But I did it anyways because I'm stupid. Before the soccer match, there was a big exam. And so I had to study and take the exam before that. And I did not eat a lot of food because I didn't have time and I was stressed out. So what I did is that the day of the thing where I had to travel, because of course it was very far away from my house, I had to take the subway. It was a very warm summer day. I sent a text to one of my friends saying, hey, I haven't eaten in almost 24 hours. Would you grab me some food? I am out of time. That person told me, oh yeah, absolutely. I get to the place, get out of the subway, meet that friend, and she tells me, oh, actually, I decided not to do that because it was an inconvenience. Really? It was too inconvenient to grab me a sandwich and just to put it in your bag and bring it to me? Okay, great. So that was already starting poorly because I'm the type of person that if I get hungry, I get mad fast. Fast. Like if my blood sugar goes down, I become a different person. We show up to the fan zone, and lo and behold, there is a queue. The two things that I love the most in life: fasting and having to queue. I shit you not, I've been to dates with women where we show up to the restaurant and there is a queue, and I tell them, I'm good. Like, I'm not doing this. I'm not queuing up for food. I'm not queuing up to see a movie. I'm not queuing up to get a new paper plate for my car. The only time in my life where I'm okay with queuing up is the airport. That's it. You will put me on the plane that will transport me throughout the world. Okay, I can queue up. Outside of that, fuck you. I'm not doing it. I see the queue and I'm like, okay, I should not do this. Like I knew it was a mistake, but I do it because back then I did not have the same willpower that I have now. Today, if you teleport me back in time, I would have looked at them and say, fuck you guys, I'm going home. The queue, we get into the queue like 2 hours before the fan zone opens, and it's already a huge queue. But okay, you know the principle of the queue, it's order. Okay, we all respect the orders. I get in the queue, and thank God I brought water. I'm hungry, but it's okay. I checked with my friends, we're having a good time. And then the doors open. And when the doors open, I realized something very interesting, which is that a lot of people are skipping the queue. So I've been waiting 2 hours in the queue, and there are people who are just waltzing by and just getting in front of police. The people who are doing like the check-ins are police officers, and they're letting that happen. To tell you the level of just incompetence and anarchy in Paris, they just didn't do their jobs. And I'm looking at this like, okay, so I'm a slut. Like come to me and tell me to my face, you are a real slut. You waited in the sun for 2 hours, and we're just going to let these people not follow the rules because we don't want to do our job. So that was already pissing me off. And then some of these guys tried to cut in front of me. Like they come out from outside and they like just step into the queue in front of me. That doesn't work. My friends are all like preppy Parisian kids. They're like, we don't want to rock the boat. I'm like, oh, I'm going to rock the boat because I'm hungry as fuck. And if we get into a fight, let's fucking fight. So every single time someone tried to cut in front of me, even if they were like far ahead in the queue, I would get out of the queue and like tug them and say, hey, behind me. Come with me, follow me, and you get behind me. I don't care if you cut, but you're not cutting in front. I did that to like 5 people. And every single time I came into it with like so much aggression that they were like, "Oh, okay, okay," because like I was a maniac. Like I was not being a proper Parisian man. I was not like, "Oh, it's okay, it's okay." I was like, "No, no, behind me." And the people like that were with me were like, "Oh, like calm down." Everything. I was like, "I haven't eaten in 24 hours. Fuck you." And Luna says that's a good way to get a beating. That's a good way to get stabbed in Paris. Because if you do that to the wrong person, they're gonna stab you. But I did that to a bunch of like people who thought that they were above the rules, and I was like, no, 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 no. So behind me, okay. Then we finally get to the fucking doors. I keep seeing people just skipping the queue, and the police officer is like, "Oh, you have to empty your water bottle." I looked at him in the face and I was like, "Really? What about that guy that just skipped the entire queue that you didn't even check his fucking bag, and you're going to make me empty my water bottle? No." And so I just walked through like, you want to stop me and taz me in the ass? Do it. I'm already way too fucking mad. So the day was already ruined for me. And we go through, and I'm like, okay, well, we're in, right? What could go wrong? We are in the fan zone. So now the fun is going to start because it's the fun zone. We get in, another fucking line. Another fucking line in front of a tiny ass booth with 2 people. Why? Because in that place, they did not accept cash. You had to transfer the cash into fucking fan zone credits, and you could only buy the things in the fan zone with the credits. Isn't that the stupidest thing you've ever heard? What even is the upside of this? There's no upside. It's just Paris being Paris. We make up rules that don't work for that. So we queue up again, and we finally get to the booth, and I have to give my money so that they give me their fucking Florent Pagny or whatever the fuck that is like fake credit money on like a plastic card, more plastic, great. And so I get that. And you would think, okay, maybe it's going to facilitate transactions. You could think that maybe it's going to be like beep, and I get my food and I get my drinks. But no, I get to the first place that sells food, another queue. I look around me, queues everywhere. It was not the fan zone, it was the queue zone. Every single booth had like a 45-minute wait time, every single booth. To tell you how Americanized my country has become, there was a McDonald's. There was a full-blown McDonald's booth in this place. And what do my stupid ass does? I queue up for the McDonald's. There was like 1,000 people waiting to buy their burgers. And I'm in the queue, and I'm going insane. I'm with like a friend, and he can tell me that I'm like this close to like doing something irreparable. I'm this close to being on the list and being like on the newspaper tomorrow. And c'est à Saint-Denis. It was in Paris. All of that is in Paris during the Euro. We wait in the queue, and I'm like, I can't do it anymore. We get out of the queue, and we go look at the situation. At least I have my water, so I drink some water, and we like take a look and we get situated. They prepared a big screen for people to watch, which was very nice. But what they did not know is that Parisian people are stupid as fuck. So, first and foremost, the place that they prepared, instead of just like grass, okay? Touch grass. It's natural, it grows by itself, it's comfortable, you can sit on it. No, they cut all of the grass. Do you know what they put in place? Wooden chips. The big ass wooden chips that are horribly uncomfortable, that you cannot stand on for a long time because they hurt your feet. Why? They went out of their way to pay someone to remove the comfortable sitting situation to replace with wooden chips that are expensive. So I'm there, I'm like, this is the worst day of my life. At this point, I'm like, this is a joke. Like, I did something to someone, and this is karma. Unplugging the laptop. But I think, okay, we are going to sit. at least we'll be sitting to watch the match, right? It'll be slightly comfortable. A little bit of comfort in life, please. We sit. The second the match starts, everyone stands up. Everyone stands up because one group stands up and the one behind it cannot see, so they stand up, and it creates a domino effect where everyone stands up. So now you're telling me I'm going to spend 3 hours on my feet watching soccer, a sport that I hate, under the August sun with no water and with no food. I will end my own life right there. I will choke on wooden chips in front of the entire crowd. I will not go through that. So the second I saw that everyone stood up, I was like, okay, you are all clinically dead. Like brain waves are just not present. You are Parisians. You're too stupid. So I rage quit the match, and I go and I queue up with the McDonald's again. I'm like, if the last thing I do in my life is eating a cheeseburger, I'll do that. I wait in the line with in McDonald's, and I was with a med student who was telling me about what is the term, about autophagy, or he was like, "Did you know that if you don't eat enough, your body starts to eat your muscles?" And I was like, "Great! So not only am I hungry, and I'm also losing gains. Is it what you're telling me right now?" I'm queuing up. I'm queuing up. I think I queued up for like 45 minutes. Then I hear this. Oui, excusez-nous, en fait, on n'avait pas très bien prévu, donc en fait, on n'a plus rien. Il y a plus de nourriture. Sorry, we didn't actually count properly, so we don't have anything left. There's no food left. You can leave now. You're telling me that I waited 45 minutes in a queue for you to tell me that you did not know that so many people are going to show up and you don't have food left? Are you fucking kidding me? Is this a joke? Please tell me this is a joke. Nope. They literally, like, they set up a place where they knew thousands of people would show up, and they had like 15 burgers. It can get worse than this. Oh yeah, it can. We leave that. We now go to another booth, and we wait in the line. And I realized quickly that there is no line. That essentially what I thought was a line, a queue, was essentially just a crowd. So you have people again who come across the crowd and who get served, like they go first. And I'm essentially stuck in a sea of people who are going back and forth, but not really going forward. And so eventually, I'm like, fuck that. I will be the asshole. I just went, like, I put my hands like around people's hips and I would just push them. And I would just like swimming through it, like stab me. At this point, I don't care. Please, end my sufferings. Stab me. And so like I'm going through, and I eventually get to the front of the thing, and I'm like, okay, I would like a sausage and this and this. The guy looks at me and says, oh, we don't have sausages. Okay, bread. Do you have bread? Oh, we don't have that anymore. Pardon, vous n'avez plus de pain. So they were out of food. And I'm like, what do you have? And he's like, oh, we don't even have water. We have beer. So I paid, I think, $20, like the equivalent of $20 for 2 pints of beer. I don't drink alcohol. What I was going to do with this? But of course, the other people with me didn't give a fuck. They ate. I was the only asshole who didn't eat. And I was told, oh, there'll be food, bro. No food. So I remember having these 2 beers and going back. Il y avait plus de pain au chocolat non plus. Arrête de me foutre le seum. I go back with my 2 beers, and like I still have like this desire in me to be nice. And just be nice. I'm going to bring the beer to my friends. They're going to drink beer. We're going to watch the match. And then be nice. I get to the place where you can watch the match. There are so many people I cannot get through. Like the screen is like ahead. And I'm surrounded. And then this is when I realize I'm surrounded by people who are like selling drugs, like hobos. So a guy who's like not wearing a short. And I'm like, what am I doing? I sat on a bench with my beer and I contemplated life for a second. And I realized that, one, my friends didn't give a fuck about me. They didn't care that I was actually not having a good time. They didn't even care that I wasn't with them because they didn't even try to like find where I was. And I was wasting my time here. And so I stood up. I found a random guy. I sold the beer to him because I was like, you want to queue up or you want to buy the beer from me? He bought the beer from me. Then I realized also that the money that you put in the card at the start, you cannot get back. Every single fucking bill I put in the card, you cannot get back. You have to spend it. Spend it on what? Beer. There's nothing else. My water bottle is empty. I go to drink water. The bathroom water is non-edible. You cannot drink it. They organized an event in summer at 2 p.m. with no shade, no place to sit, no food, no bottled water, and no tap water. This shit should be illegal. Like, I'm sorry to say this for people who live in these countries, but this is not even third world country conditions. Third world countries do it better than this. When I saw that, I was like, my country is dead. Like, this is the place where my country is buried. We are clowns. We are international failures. And the worst part of this all is that we lost that fucking match. We lost against Portugal. So when I couldn't drink that tap water, I was like, I'm done. And you know what the funniest thing too? To leave, you had to queue up again. You had to queue up to leave. I was like, no. I climbed up a fence and I went like a like a vagrant. I just escaped. And I remember like finding the first place where I could eat and just eating and being like, it was a horrible day, but it taught me a lesson. It taught me a lesson about me. It taught me that I needed to stop being a people pleaser, that I needed to stop doing things that I didn't want to do. This was my punishment. In reality, the karma was because I knew I hated soccer, I knew I hated crowds, I knew I hated people, and yet I still showed up to please others. Fuck that. From that day on, I was like, nope. If I know I won't enjoy it, I won't fucking do it. And that was it. Whew. That's the story of why I hate Paris. Quelle horreur, mais quelle horreur. Quelle ville de merde, vraiment. Hein. I'm very happy about the lesson I learned in insight. Hindsight, insight. Come to Venezuela, bro. Let me know what you think. I'm good. Just sent a coffee. Oh, okay. Okay. Let me see the coffee then. Bum. Yes. And naturally, if you enjoy these stories that I'm sharing with you guys, you can always click the link in the description or in the pinned comment and pledge a membership to the coffee page. That would mean a lot to me. $3 a month, more videos for you. Okay. Bunch of questions. Exile Wingle. Hey, NH, I recently met a girl via a friend. I'm not interested in her, and I also told her that. Okay, you're honest. She wanted to meet up regardless, and she sucked me off. Now she's very clingy. How do I get rid of her without hurting her feelings? Bro, that should have happened before she sucked your dick. And I understand that it's hard to resist as a man. It's like offering a treat to a dog and the dog turning down the treat. That's not a thing. It doesn't exist. It's hard to say no to a blowjob, but the blowjob comes with strings attached, as you are finding out. Women don't have sex with dudes just for the sake of sex. They do it to create emotional attachments. Now she thinks that you're a thing. She thinks that you're an item because in her head, blowjob equals emotional connection. In your head, blowjob equals great. She wants to suck my dick. I won't stop her. You have to cut the call as soon as possible. And please, when you do and she offers you another blowjob, don't say yes. Show some self-respect and show some respect for that poor woman too, who is going to have a very tough time with men. Because if she goes her entire life essentially offering her body in exchange for love, she will find that she will get neither. So yeah, just talk to her and say, well done. I'm sorry that I allowed you to suck my peen, but we're not doing that. Okay. Let's see if we have other questions. We have Semicolon who says, how to keep a steady rhythm going to the gym with bipolar, also known as fiesta siesta syndrome. I don't want to take meds. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist, so I cannot really talk to you about that. Most people, I'm certain, will tell you you're bipolar. You sort of need your meds. I understand not wanting to take them. The best thing you can do is ride, I guess, the waves of fiesta siesta, which you understand is not going to be optimal because you cannot just like go balls to the walls when you are in fiesta mode and then just do nothing in siesta mode. If you can find a way to somehow use therapy or meditation to balance out these swings, that's what the medication is supposed to be for. then that's your best guess, I suppose. But I would always still go to a professional, even if they don't prescribe medication, just for the sake of having the opinion of someone who actually works with people with bipolar. Okay. Okay. So we have Abai who asked a question, and he says that he wants to be featured and he is listening at his job. Okay. Okay. So your question is in two parts. Okay. So let me go back into your first part. Ooh, stay hydrated, you guys. The amount of energy it takes to tell stories is interesting. Okay. How afternoon age question from Abai? How can I make myself more delusional? The environment I live in is toxic. People here are shitting on the toilet rim while watching Taxi Driver. Well, that's interesting. Today marks my 1 year of lifting seriously, and I know if I want to make more gains, I need, and then continued, I need to become so delusional that I don't notice this anymore. You mean the shit on the toilet? I'm working and saving, don't worry about that. And I'm thinking about what the future me would want in both size and lifestyle. But right now, I'm going to need a lot more thinking broadly. Okay, so essentially, you're asking me, how do I get to a place where I no longer see how toxic my environment is? I think you're doing a great job at that already because you're asking the question. Now, is it something that you really want? I think you should not want to do that. You want to stay in a mental place where you want to get away from that environment as soon as possible, because it does sound toxic as fuck and disgusting. Now, in terms of becoming delusional to get more gains, that is a thing, but it's not really correlated. Okay. Then we have JD. Something embarrassing happened to me and I want to know your thoughts. I suppose that you want me to say it live. For context, I spent around 10 hours a week with these people. After a club meeting one day, the host started talking about something personal. I thought they were discussing something that had happened at another club I attend with them, so I assumed they wanted to include me in the conversation. My autistic self stood there staring at one of them, thinking I was supposed to be part of it, but it turned out to be about something else entirely, and it took them twice to tell me they wanted me to leave before I left. I noticed that I was also in a trance in that moment before the second time they checked me and left super embarrassed. I suspect it is my subconscious trying to see if they are worthy of my time because I would have never checked them consciously. No, I think that in this case, it's both you not reading social cues and them being cowardly about being about social cues. Unless they told you, "Hey, please leave," and you're like this. In this case, yeah, you need to pay attention to what people say. But it's perfectly normal if you're autistic to zone out after periods of social interactions. It's just that you're burnt out. Is it embarrassing? Yeah. Have I done things like this? Yeah. If it makes you feel better, and actually to connect, because it's a story that I just remembered because of what you just said, to make you like balance out your feelings. When I think it was 20, I won a competition. It was with my college. You're supposed to write a novel, and if you're selected, you are invited to like a reception, and you read your novel out loud. And I showed up to that thing, and I was like feral. So I saw that they had like smoked salmon. So I made it my life mission to eat as much smoked salmon as possible. And so I was like, at some point, I was like by the plate of smoked salmon, just stuffing my face, which is not what you're supposed to do. This was a very fancy reception. You're supposed to like, what is the term? Interact, but you're supposed to also network. You're supposed to network with people. And these were like chairs of departments of the most prestigious universities of France. Here I am just stuffing my face with the free salmon. At some point, and I was with a friend, like I had a keeper with me. And at some point, like a group of them shows up and they start to talk to me and they're like, "Oh, you're the guy who wrote that novel. I wrote a novel about like uh, World War II or something like this." And I remember one of them was an old man who told me, "Oh yeah, your novel. Well, I didn't read it because the police was too small." And I looked at him and I was like, "What do you mean it's too small?" And he was like, "Yeah, we were all given the novel in like police 7." And I was like, "Why didn't you just make it bigger?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't know. I didn't know we could do that." Okay, thank you, boomer. And then they tried to like talk to me about like studies, and I was like, "I don't want to talk to you guys. You're old. I want to eat more salmon." So I was like very curt with them, which they didn't appreciate. And then at some point, there's a silence in the conversation. I go, "Oh, you hear this? This is awkward, isn't it? Do you hear that silence? This is the sign that we have nothing to say to one another. And I remember my friend just looking at me and like pulling my sleeve, like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And you pulled me away and was like, "Are you autistic?" It was La Sorbonne, yes, it was La Sorbonne Nouvelle. And I was like, "No, why?" And he was like, "Well, these people are going to decide if you win the prize or not. What the fuck are you doing?" I was like, "I don't care. I just want to eat salmon." And turned out I didn't win the prize. The number one was good. Number two was great. And the number three made me want to shoot myself in the face. It was the theme of the novel was bitterness. Okay. A woman wrote a novel where she essentially copy pasted um, a recipe from Wikipedia, from the internet, with lemon in it, because this stupid idiot thought that that was the theme, that the theme was supposed to be talk about something that tastes bitter. She won third prize. Is the fact that maybe she was a woman and also a visible minority has influenced the jury? I don't know, but they gave third prize to a Wikipedia recipe about lemon tart. And I was sitting there like, I feel myself getting what is the term, radicalized by the second in this room. So so I as a final act of pettiness, I went and I finished all of the salmon, even though it made me sick, and then I left. Like, fuck these guys. C'est terrible. Enfin bref, all of that to say that yes, I have done very very autistic things myself that are very embarrassing, and who cares? Who cares? Just moving on. Okay, so that was your question. I hope it's useful. And then we have Chris Tang the Ray Misfits. Jesus Christ, the novel. Yeah, the issue, Chris, is that your question is in relation to like roasting other fitness influencers. So I'm going to stay away from that if you don't mind. I will answer to you like directly, like in messages, but I'm not going to answer to that. Okay, let's do another story. So we are halfway through the stream. And we have the story of the forest, the story of the apparitions I saw as a kid, the 4 stories on how that died. So maybe we should do one of these, and then why I hate New York. Which one do you want? Forest, New York, New York. The 4 stories on how it died, or how it died, is they're very short. Riptide, tick, Germany, and facial paralysis. New York, forest, New York, Empire State. How do you know it's the Empire State? Wow, that's freaky. Did I say it? Forest. Okay, we should do the forest. But before we do the forest, there are 573 people watching. There are 300 likes. Get it to 400 likes. I'm not going to keep the spooky stories for the end because the end of the stream is where like it tapers down and people are going to miss it. The good thing is that if you miss the stories, they will forever be available on the channel because it's going to be re-uploaded naturally. Look, I'm not asking you guys to pay for the stories. I'm asking you for likes. So I'm only half a slot. How many languages do you speak? 2, English and French. I'm not good enough in Spanish. Do lawyers make a lot of money in France? Yes. They make a lot of money everywhere. Have you been to Hong Kong? No, but I would like to. I think it's Singapore where if you bring weed, you get the death penalty based. How can I overcome the constant need of stimulation? Well, cut yourself off from it. It's December 1. It is, indeed. That's my favorite month. Okay, 400 likes. Let's go. So the story of the forest. So I'm going to make a quick recap for those of you who have missed the start of the journey, because it's not going to make any sense if you don't know where it's coming from. So when I was a kid, and I was like, I think I was maybe between 11 and 12, I used to spend every single summer in the mountains of Europe, because that's where my grandparents used to live. And my mom would send me there so that she could focus on making money, and I would spend the vacation with my grandparents and my cousins. And it was the best 2 months of my life. It was great. We used to play Pokemon. We used to capture insects, something that kids don't really do nowadays. And we would like make them grow. We would capture tadpoles and turn them into frogs. It was tremendous. And we used to live in a place that was like not uncivilized, but there was no internet, there was no cable TV, there was electricity, thank God, and warm water, but that was it. And the village where I used to live, where we used to live, had like 20 people who lived there, and there were more cats and dogs than people. And it was very wild. It was in the middle of a nature reserve, and we had wolves, but the wolves were like pretty like weak sauce. We had dogs, packs of dogs, because the people of these lovely mountains would do that thing where they would adopt a dog, a puppy, and then when the puppy would become too big, they would just release them into the mountains. So you would have these like massive packs of wild dogs that made no sense, because you would have like a Rottweiler, a pit bull, a Chihuahua, like it was crazy. But these were very dangerous. Like if you're biking and you saw one of these, you like hightail it out of it, because they ate people. Like some people got bitten, some people got eaten by these fucking dogs. So they were not like, they're not your friends. They're not there like to be fluffy. They're like starving, and they will eat you. And they were much more dangerous than the wolves, because the wolves were like barely doing anything. Like I remember as a kid, you saw a wolf, you would like just use always had a stick. You would slap the stick on the ground and they would run away. What else with the dogs? The one exception with the dogs is when I became an adult, and I was like an adult, an adolescent, an older adolescent. I befriended one of the dog, so he would go with me on runs. And actually, running up hills with a dog that follows you is very fun. Also very humiliating, because it's so easy for them, because they're on four legs. So oftentimes he would sprint ahead and look at me like, "Come on, bitch, come on, you're slow." So that was a good motivation. But that's for like the wildlife that was there. There were boars, and the boars are also extremely dangerous because they don't fuck around. Sometimes you're driving and there's a boar in the middle of the road, and he's just looking at you, and then you look behind him and you see his kids crossing, because they understand cars. So they understand that if they stay in the middle of the road, you're not going to like run over their kid. And many people get into accidents with these boars, and your car is totaled and the boar is fine. Like the boar hits your car, totals it, and then stands up and just goes by. Like, I'm good, and you're fucked. And they also kill people. So my grandpa loved to tell me a story of a guy who went to collect like acorns, but it was during the season where boars eat the acorns and they need them for calories. And one of the bull was a big male, and he was very territorial. So he charged the guy and he gored him, and then he started to eat his entrails. When they found the body, the boar was actively like eating the guy's entrails while the guy was still alive. So I don't know if that story is true, but it's pretty fucking metal. And since it's coming from my grandpa, who I trust entirely, I believe him. That's the same grandpa that we used to have a cat, and he was an outdoors cat. And one day the cat got eaten by one of the pack of wild dogs, and my grandpa tracked the pack and he killed every single dog. So if you are like an animal lover, I'm certain it's not going to make you feel good, but my grandpa doesn't fuck around. Yeah, it's a story time. I can tell you more stories about him. Um, he is a farmer, and moles are pretty horrible because they eat the roots, and so they kill your crops. And so my grandpa hated moles with a passion. And the way he would trap them is he would put these like metal tubes in the ground with like a bait, and they would come through and be stuck. And so either he would just let them die in there, which is a horrible death, or he would stab them. And one day he had decided that I was too soft because I loved animals too much. And I had at some point I came across the body of one of these moles, and I dug a grave for the mole because I felt bad for it. And my grandpa saw that and he was like, "Oh no, you don't." So the next day he took me to a field and he took out one of these boxes, and you could see the nose of the mole that would like peek out because it was still alive, and it was like sniffing around trying to figure out what was going on. My grandpa took a metal stick and just impaled the mole in front of me. And I remember just like bawling, like being horrified for that poor mole that just got like impaled live in front of me. And my grandpa just calling my mom and saying, "Well, we'll never do anything with that kid. He's way too fucking soft." So that was my upbringing. Yay. So, but the wildlife around it, around this place, was pretty cool. Yeah, they don't make him like this anymore. Grandparents, like if you do this as a grandpa today, you're going to get, one, you're canceled on social media, you're canceled within your own family, and you're canceled by life because you're going to like see the inside of a jail. But outside of that, to go back to the actual story, there was a forest, and the forest was like in view of the house because the house was in reality in the forest. And I would walk around a ton with my cousins, and we would like explore because this place was very weird. I didn't tell you that. I told you last time in the story. For context, it's called in our language, in the language of my ancestors, the land of witches, meaning that we actively, it's part of the folklore, we believe that there are witches. Like, it's not a joke, it's not something that we say to scare the kids. We actively believe that there are old women who have paranormal powers, and these are witches. And you can recognize them because they always wore black from head to toe, always with like a big coat, with a hat, even if it's like 100 degrees, always. They walk with a stick, and they will always ask you for your name, ask you for the name of your mother and father, and then the name of your grandparents, and they will always offer you food. They always walk around with like vegetables on their back, and you will find them like randomly. Like, you will be walking in the middle of nowhere, and there is a field right there, and there is an old woman who's like 95 with like a full thing of vegetables just walking around, and she will come up to you and like ask you, I'm going to give away the place because I'm going to speak the language. ¿Quién es? ¿Quién es tu madre? ¿Quién es tu abuela? ¿Y quieres eso? Like, that's the ritual. And my grandparents, my grandma especially, always told me, you always tell them your name. You always tell them, soy de soy de la Lidita y del Tarvino, so the names of my grandparents, and then you refuse the food. You always refuse the food. You never take the food. These are the witches. Right? They're here. And it's also believed that if you are a woman and you're born from this place, you are born with witchcraft in your blood. So you have these powers. So my grandma is believed to have these powers. My mom is believed to have these powers. And my mom believes it especially because throughout her life, every single time a man, especially a man, did something to her to hurt her, that guy got fucked up. We're talking like curse level, where the dudes, my dad, and the dudes that she dated afterwards, they all died very early death in horrible conditions. Every single one of them. So don't fuck with my mom. Because like, if you've watched Jujutsu Kaisen, there's that character who has like that spirit that is attached to him, and if you try to hurt him, it kills you. Same shit. But it doesn't apply to the men. So the men are not given the power. And it's interesting because if you look at the history of witchcraft throughout Europe, this is what it's believed. It's believed that witchcraft is only given down to the daughters, and the men get nothing. The men get none of these powers. So that's the context. So place with a lot of wild animals, lots of mysteries, witches, and also fairies. I think the Celtic way to say it is the Fae, Fae. So these are like spirits of nature that are often malevolent. Unlike what Disney stories like to share, these little spirits are very malicious. And so usually what they try to do is they try to lure you into the woods, they attract you with food, and they try to like lose you. And this is the reason why, likewise, my grandma always told me, if you are in the woods and you hear a voice of someone of your family or friend that you know is not supposed to be there, do not follow it. If you smell food and you're in the middle of the woods, do not look for the source of the smell, even if you're very hungry. And if you see a very pretty girl in the wood, especially if she's dancing, do not go and meet her. These are like tricks of the Fae. And for example, let's say you smell food and you go up to the food. Once you get to the place, the smell will have moved. And essentially, you will keep going deeper and deeper into the forest until you disappear and you're never found again. And a lot of people disappear in these mountains. And it happened to me one time where I was following a sound. There was a sound of like a chime, and I was like 7 years old. I didn't know any better. So I followed it and followed it and followed it. And eventually I came to a place where the sound of the chime was like coming from down a bridge. And I looked to see what the chime was, and I fell. And so I fell in the water. And I remember like being in the water, and I remember being like under the water. Like I was fully immersed, and I was resting on a bed of rocks, and I was there for like a good hour. And I never took a breath. I never drowned. And my grandma found me. She's the one who pulled me out of the water. Now it's a memory from like a long time ago. I've never spoken to her again about it, but after that incident is when she told me about the Fae, and she was like, "Do not do that again. This time you got lucky, but there are a lot of kids who we never find because they disappear. And what happens to them is usually they're pulled into a different dimension that is going to be that is going to be very relevant. And that is not real. Nothing that I'm talking about here is real. We're talking about a paranormal story. It happened to me. Is it real? Up to you to decide. So now that you have all of the context, in this place, in this magical place, there is a forest. And in that forest, there is a wall. That wall, I was always told, and this was number one rule, more important than anything I just told you, more important than the witches, more important than the Fae. Do not go across the wall. Do not go across the wall. That was the one thing. We were allowed to explore everything else. Just you do not go across the wall. To paint you a picture, the wall was like essentially like tree stumps with still their bark on it, with the branches chopped off and just piled on top of one another. And it was maybe 6 feet tall, so my height. It was very weird because that region of the wood is famous for their construction skills. They are tremendous with cement. They make houses out of bricks. My grandpa built his own fucking house. So you can bet your ass he would not allow such a stupid wall to be put up in the middle of the forest. It makes no sense. You want a wall, you make like a gate. You make a metal gate. You don't make that. And the thing is that the place that leads to the wall is very mysterious as well because it's owned by my grandparents. So you walk and you're essentially on a little path and you see the fields on both sides, and then you finally come to the forest. And right before the forest, there is a place that is not owned by my grandpa. That is like a massive circle of just weeds that some idiot planted bamboos in last summer. So now we're going to get bamboos everywhere. But in that place, there is a little, what we say en français, une girouette. So it's a little like metal thing that spins when there is wind. And this thing is very important for the story because it was very noisy. Like you would hear it. But it was also very random because I remember seeing it spin when there was no wind. And this is when you got into the forest. And the forest was truly like just a mass. If you've ever watched Ghibli movies, the way the forest is represented in Ghibli movies, especially Totoro, as like this big mass of trees that is ready to engulf you, it's exactly what it looked like. And I remember that it scared me as a kid. So I never had to even listen to my grandparents because I didn't want to go into that fucking forest. But then I also had an older cousin who was very adventurous and who was like egging me on and saying like, let's go beyond the wall, let's go beyond the wall, let's go beyond the wall. He wanted to see what was beyond the wall. And the reason why he was so curious is because, as I say, my grandpa owns all of that land. And once you walk towards the wall, there is a little staircase that's on the side that's like above that little path after the wall. So you could think, well, you don't have to cross the wall, just walk there. Two things. That place is where the acorns used to grow and where the bulls used to eat. And my grandpa always told me, never go there without me. Because if a bull sees you from atop the hill, he'll just charge at you. They don't care. They're dumb as fuck. Even if it means they fall with you, they'll do it and you'll die. So don't do that. And two, even if, because we went with my grandpa to collect the acorns, because my grandma used to make a puree with it. That was delicious. When you walk down on that little slope, at some point, the view that you have down of the trail disappears because the trees essentially just like constrict themselves around the trail. So it creates a bubble and you cannot see what's there. So this is why we wanted to know. Naturally, the worst thing you can do to make a kid an egg on a kid is to tell him you cannot do that. So eventually, when I was old enough, like 11, 12, and my cousin was 14, 15, we went there. Context on my cousin, stereotypical Chad, super good at sports, a jock, very popular with women, uber attractive still to this day. It pisses me off. crazy like bodybuilding genetics. I remember him like he started benching for 2 months and he had like massive Arnold Schwarzenegger pecs out of fucking nowhere. Just insane guy. When he was a kid, his favorite joke, quote unquote, was he would sneak out at night and he would go open the pen with the sheep. And so the sheep would go everywhere and then we would have to go and find them in the night. That was his idea of fun. So now you better understand why he wanted me to do this. So we get into the little path on that day where we decide to disobey my grandparents, and we face the wall. Now, why is the wall there? We asked my grandpa, and he never told us, which is weird because essentially we were given an explanation. We were told, oh, it's to prevent wild animals to come through. Wild animals to come through. Bulls will like dig underneath fences. They don't give a fuck. And we had bulls eating our potatoes every single season. So it wasn't that. We have horses, the wolves, the dogs. They can go anywhere they want. Just because you put a few tree stumps in the middle of the path doesn't mean that they're not going to go through. So that was nonsense. We knew it was bullshit. So since we knew there was nothing dangerous beyond the wall, at least in terms of animals, we were like, okay. We climb because the wall is here and there are walls on the side made of stone. And we climb up these walls because it's easier than climbing the wall. And we climb and we just jump on the side of the wall. And I remember when we did it, it was like, okay, all of that for that. Like we were almost very disappointed because it felt like nothing, because it's still the same fucking place. Like we could see from the other side of the wall that this was only that. But the fun part was supposed to be ahead. We wanted to see what we had never seen. So we start to walk. And we start to walk and we start to walk. And I remember my cousin being completely oblivious. He is the type of person who doesn't believe in the unconscious, doesn't believe in the paranormal, has like the reception abilities of like a clam. He's just in his own wood. I'm paying attention and I'm noticing something that is stressing me out a bit. One, I cannot see up that cliff. Meaning that if there is something up that cliff, like a boar, and they're dumb as fuck and territorial, that decides to jump on us, that's it. We get body dropped by a boar and that's it. Two, there's a wall on my left too. And that wall has two particularities. One, it's clean. And that's not normal. Because if you put up a wall made of stones in the middle of the wild, it's going to collect moss. That wall has no moss. It like you can take your finger and do this, and there's not even dust on your finger. It's also made of stones I've never seen before. They're perfectly aligned. I spoke about the construction skills of my ancestors. It's still pretty fucking sketchy because they take like massive slabs of rocks and they just put cement and they just put that in the wall. So it's very solid, but it doesn't look clean. Du travail de falacha. This is clean. Like this is like perfect. Like they're all sculpted like the fucking pyramids. And I'm looking at this like this doesn't sit right with me because why would you spend so much money on these good-looking stones when our village looks like essentially like a slum? And this is unseen. No one comes here. No one comes past the wall. So I'm looking at that. And past the wall is also a forest, because we're in the forest, and there are trees. Now, I know what the trees are. Back then, I didn't know. There are birch trees. So it's these trees that look like they have leprosy because, like, it's they're like peeled. They're like bananas. They're losing their layers. They're purple, so they're gorgeous. They're like white, the white bark with the purple leaves. And they move in the wind when there is no wind. That's the thing that started to stress me out. There was no wind. And these trees were like doing this. Like, I've never seen a tree do that before in my life, a birch or no birch. And I also, and this is just pure paranoia, but I remember thinking this. I remember thinking to myself, if there is a wolf, and don't ask me why I was thinking wolf, but I was envisioning, like the Beast of Darkness in Berserk. I was envisioning a big black wolf in the other side of the wall, just like crouching and just like following us by the wall. And it made me very afraid, even though it was just my imagination. But we keep walking. I don't want my cousin to call me a pussy, so we keep walking. At some point, I remember turning around and looking at the wall. And from this distance, it gave me a very distinct impression of like supplication. Because from the other side, the wall looks very scary. It looks intimidating. But from that other side, no. I almost felt like there was a voice in my head telling me, turn back now. Like you still have a chance to turn back. But we kept going. And this is when things started to get weird. And this is something that I understood the more I spoke to people. And the more I spoke to my grandma about witches. essentially, it felt like we had entered a different dimension. I remember, it's something that I told last story, there was a little stream by the cliff, and I remember like fishing or thing out of the stream, and it looked like a fish, you know, these silverfish, but it wasn't. It was a bug. It was a bug that was this big, like a water bug, that was entirely transparent, shaped like a fish, and its face was on its torso. So it had like pincers on its back and a face on its torso. And I remember looking at it and thinking, okay, I've never seen that. And I am like a complete animal nerd. I've spent my entire youth looking at these documentaries. I loved insects. I've never seen that. And I remember like I remember telling my cousin, I think we should turn back. Because like there's something wrong here. And he ignored me. Like not even an answer. He just kept walking. So I put the thing back in the stream and I just keep following him. And we walk and we walk, and I realized that some of these trees have claw marks, as if something big went like this, because the bark is like pulled, and you can clearly see the claw marks. And I'm like, now that's interesting. Can a wolf do that? Because that's very high up the tree. I don't think a wolf can do that. And going through my head, I'm also thinking, there are no bear here. Like we don't have bears where I live. We don't have a bear population. So what could have done that? And we keep walking, and eventually there's a big ass tree on my right, and there's a black cove. You know, the ones that animals use to sleep, like foxes or even bulls, they like nestle here and they sleep. But this one was bigger than I've ever seen. Like usually a fox one is going to be like 4 foot up and slightly small. This one was like 8 feet tall. It was like a cave. It was like the entrance of a cave in a tree. And I remember seeing this. And my cousin, oblivious to all of this, keeps walking. And I say, Johan, stop. We stop. And I go to inspect the thing. I don't want to go inside it. It looks very, very deep. I put my hand into it, and it's like dark. Like I can't see my hand. On the side of the cave, the cove entrance, I see hair. And I remember looking at it like, that looks human. It looked like my hair, but like slightly more brown and more fluffy. And there was a massive tuft of it, like this big, as if something like brushed against it. And I saw that, and I didn't even say anything because like in my head I was already like, I'm going to go. I turned my head towards my cousin, and he's like this. And I look at him, and I look up, and up the tree, there is this black thing, this huge black thing. And from the back, it's like almost the back of a gorilla. And it's like hugging the tree. And we're here, it's right there above us. And I looked down at my cousin, and we didn't say a word. We turned and we dashed, and we ran with everything that we had. And we never turned. Not once did we turn. And I remember feeling like the thing was right behind us, like right behind us. And I've never been more afraid in my life. And we run. We get to the wall, we jump on the side, and we get on the other side, and we keep running. We never stop running. The little wind thingy is going insane. I've never seen it go that fast. There is not a bit of wind. The entire tree is like the entire forest is like a sea. The trees are going crazy. We're running. And when we finally get to in view of our house, I did something that I still regret to that day. I turned around. And when I turned around, I remember turned around, and there in front of me is the path, far away from the wall. Like the path does this, and then it reaches the wall. But from the path, looking up, you see the forest. And I looked at the forest, and in one of these trees, I saw the black thing. It was like up a tree, very like much closer to us than when we found it the first time. And the tree that it was in was like really swaying because of its weight. And there was like this weird tunnel vision where it's like my eyes zoomed in on the thing's face, and I could see its face. And it was like a mix of a bear and an ape. And the look it gave me, like the look that I saw in its eyes, I don't know if I saw it or just imagination, but it was pure evil. it felt like it was telling me, I am going to find you and I'm going to kill you because you entered my territory and I remember you now. I remember what you smell like. I remember what you look like. I know where you live. And for weeks afterwards, I would have these horrible nightmares, or the thing would break down our door and massacre everyone in the house. And these were like very vivid dreams, like very gory, vivid dreams. And they were nonstop every single night. Every single night, I would dream about being in bed and my door just busting and that black thing coming through and killing me, killing my cousin. And I was fucking crazy. And so, but that was like, I just told you the story of the black thing. It's a story that I told in the past in the channel. Now, the follow up. Some of you guys have been waiting almost 3 years for the follow up. People were like, hey, go back to the forest. And I, of course, after this happened, I never crossed the wall again. Never crossed the wall again. And the theory that people came through in the comments of the video for the channel is that that wall is there to prevent that thing from leaving. And that maybe it's a form of like ritual, like we talked about witchcraft. Maybe this is a demon summoned by witches, and the good people, quote unquote, of the place managed to like trap it in this specific area in the forest with the wall. And so this is the reason why the wall looks out of place. It's because it's made with like tree trunks, so it's a form of like natural magic. And the reason why the wall on the side is made of special stones is also because of that. So this is like a parallel dimension, a space bubble where that thing is trapped into. And the legend, the idea is that if the wall falls, that thing will be released to do whatever it wants, which is not going to be good things from the experience that I've had with that thing. So that's what I was thinking. Then I went back to this place. And against my best judgment, I went back to that place. And I took my wife. Don't ask me why. I think I needed someone to be with me. That way, if we die together. And so we prepare and we go to that place. And we walk and we walk and we walk. And we get to the place where I told you before the forest. And so the wind chime is still here, but it's not chiming. We keep going. And as we turn, I don't recognize the place because I vividly remember that the way it was a buggy area with like a metal gate on the side that was leading into someone's field, and then straight ahead there was the wall. But this time we turn and it's just a path. The stairs on the side that used to lead to that place with the acorns and the balls is also no longer there. That has disappeared. So I'm thinking when we go back, I'm like, oh, I might have not remembered. Maybe we have to walk more to get to that wall. And we walk and we walk, and lots of like water, lots of like little places where we have to go. My wife starts complaining immediately. She's like, really? Like, we're going to eat in an hour and you're going to take me on this shitty ass walk where I'm going to have to get my shoes wet. So I'm like, no, it's you don't understand. This is important. She was, of course, not warned that we're about to run into a cryptid. So we keep going and we keep going. And like when all of that water is done, like the path goes up, which it did not used to do. We never run into the wall. And eventually we get to a place where I recognize the trees. So we have birch trees on the left, and there's the cliff on the right, but the rest is completely different. All of the trees are gone. Like the vegetation above our heads that used to make that bubble that was very scary is gone. All of the trees of the cliff are gone. It's now like dry, like the desert, and I can see the sky. And I can see like an open view of like the village, like because it's a place with a ton of small villages. I see every villages. I'm like, how can a place change like that? It's in like it took 10, 11, 21, in 15 years, give or take. It was transformed, a different place. So we keep walking, and then like the path starts going down and like it starts to meander. I'm like, this is not the place where I used to go. Like 100%, this is not the place. But eventually, me being hyper stubborn, I kept walking. And my wife was like, are you sure you know where you are? Answer was no. I was like, yes, of course, honey. So we keep walking, and I'm like, I'm dead set on finding that fucking wall because that wall cannot have disappeared. And we keep walking. And we go through like brushes and like thorns, and I keep pressing forward because in my head, like we started here and we're like here, and I think it's going to loop. I think we're going to loop. So I think we don't have to go back on our feet. We don't have any water. That's going to be important. It's like 90 degrees. And as we keep walking, eventually we come to a place where there's like a ravine and there's been a fall, like rocks have fallen, and now you cannot go through. And I'm like, well, that's I've never seen that in my life. But this is when I realize, okay, just before that, there was a little basket with trees that felt very magical. And when we crossed that basket, then there was that like ravine. And in the ravine, there was like huge tree trunks that to me looked like the wall. Again, to me, it looked like the wall. It looked like something like rocks had fallen on the wall and destroyed it. But you couldn't go past unless you're willing to go through like a very steep hill, very dangerous looking. And my wife was like, "We're not doing that. Like, I'm not doing that. We don't have any water. We have to go back to our grandma to eat in like 30 minutes. I want to take a shower. We have to go." And so I was like, "Okay, well, sure, we have to go." And we just like circled back, found our way back. But 100%, like what it felt was like, it felt like that place was just sucked up and put somewhere else. It was like the space bubble was transported somewhere else. And this was a completely different place. This was not the place that I went to. Like I 100% believe that. And so after that, I started to talk to a lot of people uh, about that. Like asking them, have you ever had experiences around here? And I've had a lot of people tell me, yeah, I've seen ghosts. There's a very famous ghost in the region that hides behind like street lights. And I can tell you guys about that if you're interested. But no one knew about the thing except my grandma. And my grandma, when I asked her, told me that essentially it was better if I didn't ask more and that the problem was quote unquote settled. I do not know what this means. I will not get another word out of her mouth about this. And I also was told expressively to not ask the women that walk around, the witches, because apparently it's dangerous. So I'm in a situation where I keep asking grandma. You don't know my grandma. If she doesn't want to tell me something, she won't tell me. But I don't know what happened. And my cousin has no recollection of that event. So I don't know. I don't know if this was a dream. I don't know. It felt very real to me. And going back to that place felt very real. Like the vibe was there. Tell us about the ghost. So a lot of people have reported that my village is like built on a mountain, so it's like upwards, and my house is like halfway through. And the only way to get into the village with a car is by the bottom. So the village is an 8. I don't know if you can like visualize it, but essentially there's a road that does this, and then there are 2 roads that go up. They go like this, so it's a loop, and the only way to go into the loop is off of that road down. So if you go with your car up, you have to do the 8 to go back down, and that's what we do. The bottom is called, I can't name it because you'll find it, but the bottom has a name, specific name in that language, and there's a single streetlight, and that single streetlight is haunted because there is apparently a ghost that lives behind it. And so if you look out of your window at a certain time of the night, you will see something peeking from across from behind the streetlight, and when you look at it, it's going to hide. And it's a very tall black being that's like 9 or 10 feet tall and very thin. So that's that. That was the story of the forest. Why am I watching this before bed? You make bad decisions in life. Do you want to live in that village? My wife wants to. It's very peaceful. I don't know. I don't know if I want to. Do I have anything else connected to witchcraft? Oh yeah, when we were kids, we used to make potions. Which was really a dick move because we used to take people's flowers and we would grind them and like put them in like water to make like potions that we of course didn't drink. One time, one of these old women saw the potions and she told us, "Oh, I'll trade you yours for mine." And so she took one of ours and she gave us one. And the second my grandma heard about this, she was like, "Nope." Took the thing. She didn't even throw it away. She was too afraid of opening it. She just buried it. So it's still buried somewhere in the mountains. So that's that. What else? Another fun story that I have for you guys. There's a ton of wasps in these mountains, and my grandma is just as old school as grandpa, as you'll come to understand. One time, my cousin got stung by a bee or wasp here, and my grandma's remedy to make that better is to apply steel to it. But when that happened, the only steel she had available was a knife. So she took out a massive butcher knife and she was running after my cousin, who was running away from her. So it was like a cartoon almost. So that was that. Yeah. I used to put my hands in like the walls. And I remember one time I put my hand in a wall when I was like 5 and I took it out and there was like wasps on it because I went for candy. Who eats candy from the wall? I don't know. I did. And I got bitten. It was crazy. Okay. So that was the story of the forest. Do you want to hear about another story about my grandma that is also related to quote unquote witchcraft, but also religion? It's a good story. Yes, I see many yeses. Okay. So this story, if you're Christian, this story is going to make you want to pray 100%. So I said that this is the land of the witches, but this is also a deeply Catholic land. And not to give away too much, but there is a very famous tomb of a saint that is 4 or 5 hours away from us. That is a very famous pilgrimage. I'm already giving away too much here. But so the people are deeply religious. And at the bottom of the village, where there is that entity, there's also a church. And so people every Sunday go and they pray, etc., etc. Completely disconnected. It's old school as fuck because we do a procession every time we pray where we carry a statue of Jesus across the village. So we do the 4-8 as a way to show devotion. And people stand in front of the houses and they put money, they pay for the church. On that statue of Jesus, there's like the tiny black kid who I think is supposed to be able. I'm not sure. He's like a complete caricature of like a black person, to the point that if you show that to someone today, they'd say, "Oh, this is blackface," and we still have it. Like we still use it because there's not a single black person like in like 100-mile radius. It's only white people, so no one finds this upsetting or offensive. It's just like, yeah, there's the. I won't even use the term that they used to refer to the kid, because if I did, it would be a slur. It's essentially the N word. But yeah, just an aside to tell you about our traditions. So witchcraft and religion. When I was 10 years old, I got facial paralysis. Uh, I went to like spend time with my dad, and remember we spent the entire day watching Tour de France, which is boring as fuck, by the way. My dad loved it for some reason, and it was August. It was like July. It was very warm, and so we used to have a vent blasting us in the face, and we spent 10 hours like doing this. And when I went to bed, my face felt cold. And when I wake up the next day, my face felt like nothing because I had lost sensation in my face. The entirety of my right side, this right side here, was frozen. All of the nerve terminations were frozen. I couldn't move. So I was like this. Like this couldn't move. And the way I figured it out was because I woke up and I was thirsty with summer, and I drank and half of the water fell on me. And I was like, what, am I retarded? Like I can't drink water. And then I went into the bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, oh great, that side of my mouth doesn't work. So like this would come up to drink, but this would just stay static. So I couldn't drink. That was fucked up. And so I did what every kid does. I knew I was supposed to go to Spain very soon, and I knew that it would be canceled if they found out that I was sick. So I lied. And my dad, being the awesome parent that he was, didn't even notice. So his son was paralyzed in the face, and for like 5 hours, he didn't even notice. So I just went by my day. My mom calls. I pick up the phone. I say, "Bonjour." She tells me there is something wrong. One word out of my mouth, and she was like, "You are sick." And I was like, "Non, ça va très bien." She's like, "You are slurring your words. What is going on?" And then I eventually reluctantly told her, "I think my face is paralyzed." And my dad was like, "Paralyzed? No, you've always looked like this." So my mom came to get me. She took one look at me. She looked at my dad. She was like, really, really, you didn't notice. She took me to the hospital a Sunday, so that was great. We wait in the waiting room for 7 hours. The French hospital system, yay. Continuez à payer vos impôts hein, pour financer l'assurance maladie, les connards. Ça marche super bien. So 7 hours in the waiting room, it was great. There were kids that had like scrubbed their knees that would go before me because they didn't even screen me. They saw me come in and they didn't see anything wrong. So they were like, oh yeah, just lay there. I laid there for like 7 hours. And eventually we see a doctor after 7 hours. And the doctor looks at me and he says, oh, you have facial paralysis. So this means two things. Either it's Bell's palsy or you are having an aneurysm and you're having brain bleed. And he tells me, well, I mean, if it was a brain bleed, you would be dead. So the French healthcare system is so fucking bad that they failed to notice and diagnose something that could have killed me. Meaning that if it was an aneurysm, I would have died on my mom's lap. In the middle of people who are like, my cat scratched my arm. You have to see me now. So that was great. But I started crying upon hearing that. And when he saw that it was coming out of two eyes, he said, oh, okay, so that's not neurological. It's just Bell's palsy. And apparently, and I know this is very controversial because I've had doctors tell me it's not how it works. Bell's palsy for me was triggered by a vent, by a fan blowing in my face. That's what the doctor told me. This is what froze my nerves. Apparently, that's not a thing. People tell me, no, it's a virus. I don't know. I find it extremely suspicious that this happened to me right after I spent 10 hours in front of a fan. So maybe it's a little bit of both. But essentially, I was paralyzed. And the doctor told me, you might stay like this for the rest of your life because people have Bell's palsy forever. Essentially, that's how you look like now. That's your life now. That was great to hear. My vacation in Spain is canceled, cannot go anymore because I have to take heavy medication, cortisone, and I have to do like a full massage with cream and everything. And my mom has to do it for me. So for the month of July, I'm stuck home. And it's a story that I told in my incel video. I gain a lot of weight. I get depressed as fuck because I cannot go out because I don't want people to see my face. The cortisone is doing jack shit, but it's making me fat as fuck. I gain 25 pounds in like the span of 1 month. So I go from a perfectly normal, healthy, athletic kid to a fat kid in like a month. And that really fucked up my mental health, but okay. But then eventually I'm cleared by the doctor to go. Not because it's getting better. It's just as bad. It has not improved, but because it's like, well, you're going to look like this for the rest of your life, so might as well go on vacation. I go there. My grandma is like, oh, you got fat. Thank you, grandma. And then she sees the entire thing. And she doesn't tell me anything, but at some point she leaves. Like she goes on like a little trip. Doesn't tell the family what she's doing at all. Meanwhile, I'm still like a fucking idiot every single night, putting the cream in my eye, putting a band-aid because when you have facial paralysis, you cannot close your eye. So if you sleep, you're like this. And your eye dries out. So you have to close your eye and then put a band-aid over it and then have like an eye patch. So I looked like a pirate. I was like a fat, obese incel pirate for like a month of my life. That month, I was not very successful with the ladies, I can tell you that. But none of it was working. Medication was not doing shit. The cream was not doing shit. I was essentially at the same level as I was day one of the paralysis. Then one day, my grandma comes home and she tells me, come, bien aquí, bien aquí. I come, she takes my glasses off. She takes a little, not a napkin, but like a cloth that people keep in their pockets in these places to blow their nose. And then they wash it or they don't. It's disgusting. An handkerchief. And she rubs it on my right side. She rubs it like she rubs it 1, 2, 3 times. And she makes sure to start from the top. She goes over my eye and she stops here. That's it. She doesn't tell me anything, puts it back, done. Next day I wake up, paralysis is gone. Gone. I went from not being able to move my face to like 95% in 24 hours. And upon that happening, of course, my mom told my grandma, what did you do? And my grandma tells her, I left to go on a pilgrimage. So my grandma left on a pilgrimage with that handkerchief. She went to that place that is the tomb of a saint, and there is a very famous status of the Virgin Mary. She took the handkerchief and she rubbed it on the right side of the face of the Virgin Mary 1, 2, 3 times. And then she took it back home and she applied it to my face 1, 2, 3 times. So what people in the Christian faith would call a miracle. That's a crazy story, right? Is this your mom's mom? Yes, it is my mom's mom. And she's 87 years old, kicking ass. She has these like massive like forearms from doing like farm work all the fucking time. She still feeds a family of 20 people daily. Her food is delicious. She's deeply religious to this day. My grandpa is still kicking ass. Like they are my role models. They are absolutely amazing. And so yeah, that was the story of the handkerchief. How are you not a Christian by now? I don't know. I'm not Wolfie. Is your grandpa still alive? Yeah, he's 97. He's going to be 100 pretty soon. When I went back this summer, my mom was like, "Don't worry about it. You'll see that your grandpa is a little bit tired because he's getting old." I show up, a demon. He's screaming at people. Something that my grandpa does. He's funny. He doesn't cook, of course, because he's old school and all about machismo. My grandma cooks. What my grandpa does is he sits his ass at the table and he says, "Not enough food." Yeah, there's not enough food. People are starving. Meanwhile, people are like dying because there's way too much fucking food. It's like there's not enough food. People are leaving. We're losing people. Like you have to do something about this. He also, if there's no bread on the table, he takes bread and he throws it at people from across the room. So like he'll take a look around because in that place we say come como lobo, eating like the wolf. It means that you're eating, but you don't have bread. So essentially, you're a savage. Like if you eat chicken, but you don't eat bread with the chicken, you're a savage. So he goes around with the basket of bread and he just tosses it at you, even if you don't want it. He will also insist on making you drink the liquor that he makes himself. That is like 90% alcohol. That is impossible to down. And he tried to get my wife to drink it. She took one sip and she looked at me like, "Please save me." So I went and like I emptied it back into the bottle when he wasn't looking. I don't know what we use that for. You can put that down a drain. It's going to unclog the drain. So down your stomach, you don't want that. So yeah, great stories from that. The sad and tragic thing is that this kind of culture will die with these people. Yeah, that is the truth. Thankfully, a lot of people in my family are learning from my grandpa and learning the trade. So how to make salchichas, how to make the sausages, because of course my grandpa makes his own sausages, make chorizo, jamon, all of that. And it's something that if you want to see, you can just go into the channel and just type like mountain training arc. And it's when I trained in Spain. So you'll get to see the place that I described. You'll get to see the place where my grandpa makes the jamon and the sausages because I train in that place. Where they put the pig and they slay the pig and they make the sausage. This is where I train in the summer. Jamon, jamon. Parle en français pour faire chier les US. Ouais, il faut être gentil avec les US. Ils ont suffisamment de problèmes comme ça. Hein. All right. Let's see if you guys have some questions on coffee. Who would win, Hemingway or the Massive Black Thing? Since Hemingway has been trained in the Powder Wars, I think he would win. Then we have Lost in Contradiction. Oh, okay. Sorry, sorry, buddy. I didn't see your your questions. Okay, let's see your questions. When you were in your Slayer phase and hooking up with different women, how concerned were you about getting STDs? Did you ask if they had been tested recently, or did you just accept the potential risk of them to avoid that conversation? So I'm a bit of a weirdo where the only woman where I really did, and this is very TMI, but at this point, the only woman where I actually had like penetrative sex with is my wife. It's the only woman that I actually fucked. The other women we fooled around, but I never fucked them because to me that was sacred. And I didn't want to engage in it with women that I was not emotionally connected to. And since I was never able to fall in love with women, I said no. And I said no to my wife also for a very long time. I know it's weird, but she was the one. I mean, okay. Essentially, I was like, no, let's take our time. And eventually I gave in, quote unquote, when I realized, oh, I'm in love with this woman. So that was That was something that I did. I didn't do it because of something that I heard of a podcaster saying you need to do this. It just felt good to me. It felt like natural, and of course, it made my girlfriends very mad because they're like, "When do I get the dick?" And I was like, "When I put a ring on it, I guess, or when I think that one day I will," which is something different. Good question. You also say, I've been very focused on progression in my own life for the past few years and purposefully avoided getting in a committed relationship due to schedule. I do not regret this. I also am not a big fan of hookups. That being said, I'm an attractive guy and I've had many enticing offers over the past few years, but I've managed to keep my resolve strong and I've not hooked up. I don't really want to get in a relationship just for sex, which is wise, especially because now it's just not a great time for me. Wanted to hear, should I keep my resolve strong and continue to willpower my way through this, or would a responsible hookup here and there be a detrimental decision? I really do think that you're on the right path, and that naturally, as a man, there's that like male brain that says, "Get your dick sucked, bro," and you're resisting that, which is something that I was not able to do. I think it's good on you. I also would tell you to be careful of not having too high of a standard because sometimes a beautiful relationship that leads to emotions and to love starts as quote unquote a hookup, meaning something that should be just physical. The beautiful thing about the human brain and the human heart is that we can't do that. There's no just hooking up, it doesn't exist. Either you develop feelings and so it evolves into something else, or you realize that you're wasting your time. So keep yourself open for that opportunity because maybe the right woman is one that you're going to connect with first sexually and then emotionally. All right, we have objectively subjective who asks, most of my thoughts are consumed making decisions that will provide character growth leading to true confidence. Lately, I've had the itch to study in university, specifically abroad. I feel like my weaknesses relate to me holding my true self back. I want to do things that will test and expand me, but I don't want to hide away from problems in myself by solving them with changing my environment. Why? Any personal guidance is appreciated. I think that you should do just that. It's stupid to say I don't want to change my environment to change me. That's pretty much one of the only way to do that. It's really hard to be a new you if what surrounds you is the same old people and the same environment that made you you. You say you have limited finances right now. Find a way, dude. Studying abroad changed my life. It made me into a different person because I was independent for the first time and I was able to spend more time figuring out who I was. So I would tell you to let go of that self restricting belief and go out there, right? We are meant to do that as men. Then we have Jack. And Jack, you have a question that looks very interesting, 100%, but I think it would be better suited for the self-improvement Q&A. And since we only have 30 minutes to finish the stories, if you don't mind, it will be for the next time because I do want to get to more stories. Um, because I'm supposed to end in 30 minutes to spend time with my dear wife. All right, the stories we have left. We have the story of my childhood seeing apparitions. We have the story of the riptide, bitten by a tick. We have how I almost died in Germany and why I hate New York. Which one do you guys want? Germany, Germany, Germany. Okay, Germany. I see a million Germany, so Germany. Okay, it's a very short story, but it's one of the time where I came closest to death. So I went to Germany. I said it's a short story. It's not going to be short, of course. Let me. Do I have a phone next to me? Actually, let me chat. Let me ask my wife. Yes, I'm pussy whipped to see if she would be okay with me expanding the stream a bit. Ah, she's already answering. Elle m'a répondu. She answered oui bébé. Oh là 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 là. Mariez-vous les gars, hein. Mariez-vous les gars, hein. Qu'elle est bien, putain, c'est bien le mariage, on est trop bien, hein. You can hear her laugh in the background because she's watching the stream. She's spying on me actively. Yeah, find yourself a woman that you're willing to end the stream for, and she tells you it's okay. You honestly, you owe her, right? Find a way to repay her. I know that she wants like she wants a humidifier there's a coffee page. I'm just like connecting dots here. All right. So we have more time. We're going to stream for another hour. You guys are spoiled. Let's do it. So Germany. Um, we have. She's also on the chat. You will not know who she is, but she's on the chat. So Germany. I took German for 8 years. I retained none of it. But that's my life, and that's the life of many French kids. We take Spanish and German and we retain all of it. But we take these languages because that way we get to travel. If you're taking Spanish, you're intelligent, you're going to go to Spain. There are beautiful women, it's warm, cool. If you take German to travel, that's less cool. The women are beautiful, but it's cold as fuck. So I think I was 13 and we traveled to Germany to the dark forest. And I spent 15 days there. And it was a weird 15 days, man. One, the family that took me in was very nice and they had a beautiful house. But the guy that was supposed to be what we call my correspondent, so the guy I was supposed to spend time with, he wasn't really interested. Like he was doing his own thing. He used to keep like pet spiders and he was in his room all the time. His name was Marcus. We never interacted. So I spent most of my time with his mom. Nothing weird here. But the mom was nice and she spoke French. So we spent a lot of time together. And I remember they put me in a room that was clearly not supposed to be a guest room. It was like an office. I think it was the dad's office. And there were a bunch of like dead animals in the room, like stuffed dead animals. So there was like a peacock and there was like a deer, but just the head on the wall. And I remember trying to fall asleep like in the bed. I'm 13 and looking up and seeing the heads looking down at me and being like, this is the best that you had to offer for me. Why did you put me in the horror room? Two, they didn't refeed me. I can't really explain it. I don't understand. Maybe Germans can like tell me what the fuck was going on. They didn't eat breakfast. They ate lunch at school or at work, and then they didn't eat dinner. Like I remember going home after school, and at 6 p.m. they would eat dinner, these people, and it would be like a tomato salad. And then I would wait for the rest of the dishes and they would leave. And I'd be like, excuse me, I'm Mediterranean. This, like, it's cold as fuck outside. You can't just feed me tomatoes. Like, I will die. You're going to have to explain to my mom why I died. And so and they were not poor. They were very rich, these people. And I remember the mom like reluctantly making me food, and she would make me like a shit ton of pasta and then be mad that I wouldn't finish. And I was like, can I have a middle ground? Why is it either no food or too much food? So eventually, I think they figured out that French people are fat. So she would put baskets of chocolate in my room every night, and I mostly ate that. So like for like 15 days, most of my calories came from chocolate. That was interesting. We would go to like festivals or like Christmas markets, and I remember one time someone like handed me like a drink and it looked like a tall glass of piss. And I remember taking a sip and it was the most disgusting thing I've ever tested. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And the guy was like, oh, it's warm orange juice. And I looked at him and was like, is that a thing? Do you guys drink that? Because now I'm going to understand why you guys are so weird. Because the average dude was like, it was crazy because it was the dichotomy of they were all super tall, essentially just like the perfect poster boy for like Nazi propaganda. Tall, blonde, blue eyes, like squirrel jaw, like the Übermensch. And then they had these like weird autistic personalities where they were like super timid. I remember the German girls in their class were like all over us because we were like a little bit more masculine, I guess. The German guys got nothing. They were not popular with the German girls at all. And it was weird. And like the orange juice, warm orange juice, why? Like, did you try to copy the warm wine that we do in France? We don't do it with orange juice, dude. So it was really disgusting. What was I talking about again? Oh yeah, Germany. so that goes on. How wide are your clavicles? Very narrow. So that goes on. My roommate ignores me. I spend time with the mom. The dad is deeply autistic as well. He watches like Blues Brothers every single night. Same movie every single night. They have cats. I think this is what saved my life. The chocolate and the cats. And that was my life. I would pet the cats and eat chocolate. And eventually, and this is what leads to the story, my stories are always long-winded because lots of details come back to my head. We go to another place and we have to take the train. Taking the train in Germany is already scary enough for me, but okay. We are on the train station and we're waiting with the class. And the way in Germany they do it is there's like a mark on the ground that tells you do not go past that mark before the train comes because it's dangerous. Fair enough. Thank you, German people, for creating rules that protects dumb people like us. And I wait, and I'm talking to a friend, and like there's a group of us, and we're talking stories. And my back is my back is to the train, so I don't see the train coming, but I'm like way like ahead of the mark, so it's not dangerous at all. And I'm talking to a guy, and a train, I can hear a train come by, but I'm like, I'm not concerned. Who gives a fuck? My back is to the train, I'm far away. And as I'm talking my story, I'm like all excited, I'm not paying attention. A friend of mine, his name was Elliot. Elliot, si tu nous regardes, merci de m'avoir sauvé la vie. Reaches out, grabs me by the jacket, and pulls me forward. And as he pulls me, I feel something behind my head just graze the back of my head, like going. And like I turn my head, and the train was carrying cargo, and they were like metal bars. And these fucking idiots, instead of like putting them in line with the train, they put them across. So when the train came into like to actually like go through the station, the metal bars were just like going through, and one of them, if I hadn't moved, would have just decapitated me on the spot. And the guy pulled me just enough so that it just like grazed my head. It was first off, I don't think it was a train packed by Germans. I don't think Germans would be that inefficient. I don't know where that train was coming. I think Eastern Europe. Again, no disrespect for Eastern Europeans, but holy fuck, I almost died. So thank you, Elliot. Don't say Elliot the Chad because he eventually got in trouble for stuff that he did to his little sister. That's a different story. Yeah, so we got saved on that day. All right, that was the Germany story. I just realized that I have another story that I didn't even add to the list because it escaped my mind. It's the story of when I went to India. You guys want to hear that? Lots of crazy stuff too. How many people saved your life? Many. Do we have Indians in the chat? Are you going to get mad at me if I say that I don't like your country? Because the last time I dared say that I went to India and didn't have a good time, people were like, "Oh no, India number one, you're cancelled." Anything but India. Wife said yes. Yeah, the wife gave us 30 minutes, so we have another like 50 minutes. Why is your life just many Simpsons episodes? I don't know. We want to know about Elliot. He was a weird, troubled kid. I hope he's doing better. Stories about Egypt. I would love to tell you about the story of me going to Cairo, but alas, I never went. You know what? Before India, I'm going to tell you the story of Dublin because if I am going to piss off Indians, which are the second most nationalist people, I first have to piss off the number one, which are Irish people. So when I was 14, so it was 2 years after Germany, I went to Dublin. And it was probably one of the most experience of my life. First off, you arrive in Dublin and it's like you arrived in a place where the sun is banned. There was no sun for like, I shit you not, like 10 days. And it's not like, oh, it was like cloudy. No sun. I didn't see the sun one time. We stayed in like this like weird hotel where they were trying to make like this replica of an English breakfast, which was disgusting, save for the sausages. So I would just stuff my face with sausages. Then Shane, I'm sorry, Shane, I'm going to shit on your people. We all slept in a room full of boys who are 14, which meant that every single night, these guys would have a discussion about which porn site was the best, and then they would all go on the porn site on one phone, and some of them would jerk off. Like, if you're a woman and you're like, I wonder what's going on with guys, that's what's going on with guys. It's dudes in the same bunk jerking off. And it's supposed to not be gay. I'm sorry, that's very gay. It's just, I remember being in my bunk and being like, is that what being a man is? Like, is this what I'm going to like become as well? I don't want to be that. They also used to do that thing where they would like fart under their blankets and then they would put the blanket over someone else's face. And I was like, is that amusing? Like, am I supposed to find this funny? Am I gay? Am I weird for not finding that funny? So that's the boys. Also, the showers were horrible, so I didn't shower for 10 days. So I'm sure I was very stinky. But please understand where I was coming from. I was with people who would fart on each other and jerk off in the same bunks. I don't want to be naked with them. I'm sorry. I'd rather stink. So that was Dublin, and the peak of that journey was that eventually we visited the Guinness Museum, which, if you drink beer, I'm certain is a great experience because there's a rooftop where you can drink Guinness. But if you're 14, so essentially our teachers took us there like, let's go get drunk while these fucking idiots go through the museum. I got lost. I got lost in the museum. I didn't speak English back then. So I was like by myself, didn't speak the language, and no one was helping me. It felt like, these labyrinth and like scary movies where you cannot escape. It's what it felt. The thing though is that now I know everything there is to know about beer. I know how you're supposed to brew it. I know every single type of Guinness, even though I don't drink alcohol. And the worst part is that when I finally managed to escape that maze, I got scolded for being late. So thank you for that. Fuck you. And I will never go back to Dublin. Also, it was great the amount of kids, not teenagers, kids that were drunk on the streets. We would walk around on Thursday at 3 p.m. There would be like 12-year-old girls plastered, just like completely ravaged. Just like, is that part of the culture? I also, so many things happened to me on the trip. There was a girl from my class that was not very attractive that decided that she was dating me, like without my consent. So she would like grab my hand and force me to walk with her. And at some point, I was like, I want to play video games with the guys. So I told her to her face, I don't think this is gonna work. And apparently, that made me a bad person. Yeah, some girls in my class thought I was a gypsy because I would wash dishes with my bare hands and not a sponge, because I thought that was what you're supposed to do. So for the rest of the year, I had a reputation of being a gypsy, which they would get cancelled for that today. Fuck them. So that's Dublin. Okay. India? This was a warm-up. Are you ready for India? Did you come from a rich family? No. That's actually just the life of a French kid. If you're a French kid, your score is most likely going to go back and forth throughout Europe. I went to Dublin. I went to Italy. I'll tell you the trip to Italy afterwards. I went to Germany, and I went to India. The girl wanted you when you weren't showering. Yes, because she was not attractive. Okay, so India. What the fuck was I doing in India? It's not even in Europe. The India trip was because my school, when I was in high school, had an exchange program with an Indian school. And so, first and foremost, we establish who is going to get who. Naturally, everyone else gets like what we say correspondant. I get someone who doesn't answer, and he's like clearly someone who doesn't have anything to do with me. But okay, I don't want to like trash talk him too much because he might be watching this. He was clearly autistic as well. That's okay. We go there. We arrive in India. Exit the plane, and I look around. I'm like, wow, lots of fog. It's a very foggy country. Guide is like, no, that's not fog. That's just what Delhi looks like. Like, this is just pollution. This is like that every single day. And by the way, if you blow your nose and there is dark specks in the thing, don't panic. That's normal. I'm sorry, I didn't grow up in a country where having like black tar in your nose is normal. Like, I'm not a coal miner from the 1800s. What the fuck is this? So that was already interesting. We get situated in our place, and the place where I went to stay was tremendous. They had a shit ton of money. They were from the higher caste. They were Brahmin. They had their own personal gyms that they never used. They had servants, which were slaves, straight up slaves. I'll talk more about the slaves later. But the place was very nice. I get my own room. As always, the rooms that I get are crazy. They give me a bed, which very nice of them, which is larger than longer. So the bed in length was maybe 8 feet, but in width was 8 feet, but in length was like maybe 5. So the only way I could sleep was sideways, which was made very difficult by the fact that they nailed the blanket to the bed. I came in, and there was a blanket already on the bed that they nailed all across on the frame. And I was like, did you hear about the rumor of me being a gypsy? Do you think I'm going to steal your blanket? What the fuck is this? And of course, it's nailed to the bed, so I couldn't take it off. So the only way I could use the blanket to sleep was to like pull on it, get in it, and then the blanket would like slap me down, and that's it. That's your night. I would be like this. And so it was of course horribly uncomfortable. Add to that I have to sleep sideways on the nailed bed, and then the cherry on top, I got tourista. Tourista, for those who don't know, is when you go to a country, a third world country, if I were Marx, I would say le sud émergent, the emerging south, a third world country. If you drink their water, you're going to shit yourself. Well, I didn't drink their water, but I made the mistake of brushing my tooth with the water, and so I got the shits. Oh, by the way, I just remembered something else. When I came into so many things coming into my brain, and this is not an indictment on India. I'm just saying they didn't have a shower. They were rich, but they would bath with like a bucket, and you were supposed to dump the bucket on yourself. I'm like, I'm not like sorry, but I'm not doing that. So they actually went and installed a shower head just for me, the spoiled European. But the thing is that they clearly did that. Like they saw a guy on the street and were like, hey, make the shower for us. And they never tested it. So the way they rigged the entire thing was so badly done that one time I took a shower and there was like thunder outside. There was a thunderstorm. I got shocked. Like the water from the shower shocked me. It was connected to the outside somehow, and I got electrocuted in the shower. When that happened to me, I was like, why am I here? Why did I come? I know this is a bad idea to leave my home. Why do I keep making this fucking mistake? So that was that. I was also on the toilet shitting all the time because I had the shits. And at one point, we were supposed to get onto a bus to go to a different place in India to go see a temple, which, by the way, okay, the temples were very nice. You have nice temples. And the night before, the worst bout of tourista in my life. I'm sweating. I have a fever. I'm in the bed. It's like a SpongeBob episode where I'm like this, and I'm like, I'm dying. Like, this is my last night. They don't have medication, of course. Like, so I'm like just there. I had like diarrhea medication that was doing nothing, and I'm just stuck. And I remember thinking, if I go on that bus, I will shit on that bus. And there are many cute girls in my class. I don't want to shit in that bus. Also, it's India. Guaranteed there's no bathroom in the fucking bus. I was right. We show up in the morning. I'm half dead. We get into the bus, no bathroom. So now I have to hold my tourista liquid shit for like 5 hours. I thought I was going to die. At some point, I remember being like curled on my side, and there was a cute girl that was chatting me up, and I told her, just please go away. Like, I cannot do this right now. I wish I could. Like, I wish I could, but I can't. Because if you keep talking to me, I'm going to shit myself right now. And that will really kill any chance I have of getting with you. So please stop. So we get to that place. We stay in a hotel with a shower, with a bathtub. I was so happy. And something else happened here. Let me think. Something else happened. Something happens all the time. Yes. Well, first and foremost, one of my friends thought it would be a good idea to take my... you have to take a medication for malaria in India that prevents you from getting paludism if you get stung by a mosquito. And you're supposed to take like a dose a day. A friend of mine thought it was a good idea to crush it and sniff it. So I didn't have my dose for the day because he sniffed it. It wouldn't help his nose. That guy sniffed a lot of things. He also sniffed the diarrhea medication. I was surrounded by degenerates. I don't know what I've done to deserve that. But yeah. So that was that. Also, I'm a little bitch. So the the malaria medication was like this big, and I couldn't swallow it. So I had to like cut it in 4, and this is why the guy was able to sniff it. Is because like as I cut it in 4, he was like, "Oh, good idea," and he crushed one part and he sniffed it. Sniffed it. So that was the hotel, and at some point in the hotel, what else happened? Yeah, I was still shitting myself. And people had decided that my room would be the party room because back then I was a pushover, and my friends knew I wasn't going to say no. So they literally forced their way into my room. Like there was a battle where I was trying to like prevent the room from getting kicked in. Look at that fucking shoulder. Look at that. Look at that. Getting kicked in, and like they eventually managed to get their way into my room. And can you flex for us? Not too much. Not too much. And so yeah, it was a complete mayhem. I just wanted to shit and sleep, and I was I was rooming with someone who was very, very nice, and very nice, or maybe afraid I was going to shit on him. He gave me the bed, so I had the bed just for myself, and he slept in the bathtub, which is very cute, very comfortable for me. But at some point, I'm sleeping, and throughout the night, I hear my door open, and a whole procession of girls from my class go by, and they all kiss me on the cheek because one of my friends said, "Oh, he's sick. Let's go see him and kiss him on the cheek." As I was like actively trying to like constrict my sphincter not to shit the bed. So not a great moment either. But that was India, and like the culmination of all of this nonsense. There are many things happening. At some point, one of the girls in my class got fucked by an Indian guy, and the guy lasted like 15 seconds, and so he was nicknamed Quickie for the rest of his life because of that. The food I couldn't eat, like, and it's not Indian food being bad. It's just it was so spicy. Why did they kiss you? Because it's like they kissed me on the cheek. It's a French thing. It's to be like cute, like, oh, like get well. And someone in the chat said it. That's how you get sick. Yeah, that was really fucking stupid. I couldn't eat food because it was way too spicy. I remember we went to an Asian restaurant, and they had like spice levels. I ordered like spice level 1 every single dish. I couldn't eat it. I couldn't touch it. It would burn my mouth. So I lost, I think, like 12 pounds. Every single time there's an issue with food when I go somewhere else, the only thing I could eat was like rice. They would make these bowls of rice and goat milk because they didn't have cow milk. It was India. So my diet for the entire stay was white rice, goat milk, and sugar. Of course, I lost weight. There was not even a gram of protein in my fucking diet. There was that. Lots of very shocking things I saw. That this is the reason why I say I don't like India. I remember being on the highway in a taxi cab, and you see a hand crawl up your window, and it's a kid. On the highway, there are kids without their legs who are crawling in between the cars and begging for money. Some of these kids were born without legs. Other kids were born with their legs. They were taken in by a form of mafia. Their legs were cut so that they make more money. When you see that and you go back to Europe, you're like, yeah, I'm spoiled as fuck. Like, life is good as fuck. I'm privileged that I'm not a kid without legs on the highway in India where people are driving like crazy. So that was an interesting thing. Second thing, the servants, the slaves that my family used to have. I say slaves because I don't think they were paid. And two, no one looked at them in the eye. No one referred to them by name. It was essentially, do this. And it would be done in that fashion. Like, the guys here, do this. They wouldn't even look at them. They wouldn't even acknowledge them as humans. As Nietzschean as I might be, and as anti-egalitarian as I might be, I'm still European. I'm still attached to the values of humanity. This is too much for me. So I was very nice with them. I chatted with them. I spoke to them. I learned their names, to the point that the day I left India, I was in the car, and one of the servants put his hand on my window, and the guy was bawling because the last person that was treating him like a human being was leaving, and he knew I would never come back. That fucked me up. I was like, I'm never coming back here. Like, the system that you have in place, I'm not doing that. I don't care. I don't care if his ancestors were lesser than your ancestors. Your system is garbage. You have to do something about it. It's heartbreaking to deal with that. Yeah. So that was India. But to go back to a more so that was the end of the India trip. And then to end on a better note for the last trip that I have in my memory for you guys, when I went to Italy, my timing is always superb. We went to Napoli to see the Vesuve, the volcano. We went during the time where the mafia had taken control over the garbage trucks, and so garbage had stopped being collected for 2 months. Essentially, I visited a pile of garbage. I don't know if I saw Napoli. I saw a lot of garbage. There were like mountains of it on the streets, rats everywhere. Italian men have a tough time understanding like age of consent because we were like 13, and I remember like 25-year-old Italian dudes hitting on the girls in my class. And I was like, I think that's statutory rape. I think that's illegal what you're doing. I don't know Italy too much, but she's clearly 13. Like, she's not, she has no tits, she has no ass, she's like this tall. You're attracted to a child. What the fuck? So that was the Italy trip. We went there by train. I'm sorry, you don't make me travel by night by train. I'm French. We have an history with that. It's very traumatic. They put us on trains 12 hours Couldn't we just take a plane for an hour and go to Italy? No, we spent the entire night in a train. Of course, I'm paired with the guy who likes to show me videos of people getting their dick cut, so that was nice. Impossible to sleep, naturally, because the train is moving all the time. We get to Italy. The hotel is very nice. I'm not taking a shower again. This time it was because, and this to tell you how much I hated myself back then. When I used to wash my hair, it would be poofy, and I didn't like it, so I didn't shower. We killed someone, I think, because at some point I was in my room and there were a lot of people in my room, as always. And someone took a bottle of shampoo that was like glass and tossed it, and it landed on someone on a motorcycle. So I don't know if that guy is doing well. I'm not the one who threw the bottle. If the statute of limitation has not expired yet, I didn't throw it, but I saw it, and I don't think the guy was doing well. Salut Narvalo. How did your hair stop becoming puffy? I stopped washing it so often. That guy hit a bottle of shampoo in the head. A lot of people in your room. Yeah, but just boys being boys. No girls at the time, 13 years old. I had friends who were sexually active. I would not be sexually active for 7-8 years. I'm a very late bloomer when it comes to that. So Italy, and then the culmination of this entire shit show, we go to the Vesuve, the volcano, and now, if you're Italian, correct me if this is bullshit. This was an urban legend that we would tell each other. But back then, Sergio Berlusconi, I think, was your president, the guy who fucked a porn star. So essentially the Italian Trump. And the guy decided that to solve the garbage crisis, he was going to take all of the garbage and toss it in the Vesuve. And his thought process was, well, the volcano will take care of it because it's a volcano, even though it's not an active volcano. But that was what we heard, that people were like actively collecting garbage and dumping it into the volcano. So that's some like old god shit. And when we went up the Vesuve, I was with a friend who was deeply addicted to stimulants, especially Red Bull. And he would drink Red Bull every single day. And it's a story I told in my stimulant video. The guy would drink 3 or 4 Red Bulls a day, which is a shit ton of caffeine for a 13-year-old. And on the Vesuve, he had a heart attack. So I was walking behind him and he just fell like a plank in front of me. And I was like, Romain, are you okay? And the guy was essentially just having a heart attack in front of me because of all of the stimulants and because of the heat and like going up the volcano. And he survived. He's doing well nowadays, but holy fuck, he stopped drinking Red Bulls because of this. No, he didn't fall into the volcano. He fell like on the path towards the volcano. And the volcano, by the way, was nothing special. So apparently Berlusconi, it was a joke. You didn't actually do that. Okay. Because I knew it was a connection with the mafia and Berlusconi and the garbage. I don't see how garbage and mafia is connected in your Italy, but apparently it is. So that was the story of Italy. And something else that happened that was very funny. We had one Asian kid in the entire school. One. That guy thought it would be a good idea in Italy, of all places, to buy knuckles, brass knuckles, which are illegal. He bought them off of some like fucking guy from the side of the street, and he got immediately arrested because he walked around Italy with like the brass knuckles. So the police was like, okay, Bruce Lee, you're going to come with us. And so the teachers had to go and like fetch him from the jail. Brass knuckles in Italy, jail. So yeah, that was the worst investment of his life. But what a fucking stupid idea. Talking about stupid ideas, it just reminded me of something else stupid that I did. When I went to India, we went to an antique shop, and the guy was trying to sell me weapons. Don't ask me why. And he was trying to sell me these like, you see Wolverine, like the clothes that he has. Well, India apparently has a weapon like that, where you put your hand in like a glove, and it has spikes, and you can kill people. He was trying to sell me that, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's illegal, bro. And then he managed to sell me a knife that was like, oh, it's an ancient knife from blah blah blah. And so I bought it, and then I quickly found out that yeah, it's illegal to have a knife, and so it was quickly confiscated. Asshole. Another story. Jesus, the stories just keep coming back. Another story from India, and this one is just going to be me openly hating on women. So be ready for that. We went to like an open market. And in India, anyone who's went to India knows that you're supposed to bargain. You never pay the full price of the fucking product because it's priced times 10 because they know you're a tourist. So I was bargaining with people and I was pretty fucking good. You know, I had my moves. My number one move is I would come to the guy. I was 15 in India, and I would take like a piece of garment, like a scarf for my mom, and it would be like, I'm saying random shit, but like a lot of rupees, way too expensive. And I'd bargain, and eventually the guy would say, okay, no more. And I'd say, okay. And I would take the thing, and I would fold it back and I would put it in place and I would leave. And I knew every single time that once I was like 5 or 6 paces away, he would call me back. He'd be like, okay, come. And he'll give me my price. That's the way you're supposed to fucking do it if you're smart. All of the white women in my class, none of that was like even crossing their brain. They were like, why do I need that? I can just pay full price. It's better. And so, because of these idiots, every other person in the market saw that and was like, oh, they're all suckers. They're all going to pay full price. So then when I was trying to bargain with them, they're like, no, because that white woman just paid X amount for this. So you're going to pay the same. Thank you for that. Thank you for ruining my opportunity to make money off of people who make no money. Why didn't you explain to them? Have you ever tried to explain the concept of bargaining to teenage girls? It's not easy. But talking about money, I also almost got, I think, kidnapped and killed in India because I made the number one mistake of pulling out my money. So at some point, there was a guy that was showing me around the temple, and I went to pay him. And when I went to pay him, I opened my wallet, and he saw that I had inside the wallet the equivalent of like 10 years of salary for him. And I remember looking at him in the eyes, and I could like, through his eyes, I could see his mind. And in his brain, he was thinking, do I kill him? Because if I kill him, I make it. Like, I'm rich. Do I kill that kid? And I was like, and I gave him way too much money for like the guide. I think I gave him 10 times what he should have made, and he took it and he left me alone. But I was like, okay, I think I almost died here, so maybe not again. So yeah. All right, so that was India. So that was India, and then that was Italy. Lots of stories, and we have roughly 30 minutes remaining. So let me see if we have questions on the coffee page. Which, by the way, again, if you enjoy these stories, if you like the channel, if you like the streams, you can click the link in the description if you want to pledge for the coffee page. And Chris Tang, you sent me a question about the incel video, and it will be answered because there will be a follow-up to the incel video. So you just have to wait for that. It's going to cover your question. Okay, perfect. That's it. So we're going to stop with the coffee. Of course, you can still pledge, but don't send donations or questions because I won't get to it. I want to use the last time that we have to answer, to tell you guys the rest of the stories. So what do we have left? We've done the trap house. We've done the mosque. We've done the forest. We've done the facial paralysis. We've done Germany. We've done India, Italy. We've done Paris. We have why I hate New York, the time I almost died in a riptide, the time I was also almost killed by a tick, the apparitions I saw as a kid. Which ones do you guys want to end on? Okay, I see New York. All right, so New York. Let's start with New York. This one should be relatively short. I always say that, but it should. So, I went to New York to visit my best friend who was living in New York because we went to the USA together to study. And when I went to New York, you sent a question 20 minutes ago on coffee, Drew. You sure about that? I don't see your name. What is your name on coffee? Are you Boomba? Okay, if you're Boomba, then I'm going to answer now. In a video I can't quite place right now, you're talking about how humans and are social creatures, and mentioned that you once spent multiple days in complete isolation and eventually realized you are losing your mind. What were the signs you noted during those few days that made you realize you were losing your mind? Okay, well, that's objectively a very good question. So let's answer that, and then we'll do New York. So when I was in grad school, I went through a period of 2 weeks where I did not speak a word to another human. Not a word. I had no social interactions. And eventually I started to lose my marbles. The way I realized I was starting to lose my marbles is because I was starting to dissociate so bad that I didn't recognize my own name and I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. So looking myself in the mirror, the sensation I had in my brain felt like I was looking at a stranger's face. And when someone spoke my name, it was like someone saying table. It meant nothing to me. I was slowly but surely separating myself from who I was. That is like what lack of social interaction and isolation did to me. And when I realized that, I was like, fuck, I have to correct that. So that was that. All right. New York. So visiting my friend, etc. I wanted to spend time with my friend. So I wanted to live with him. And he was living in like a very bougie place in Manhattan because he was rich as fuck. His rent was like $3,000 like a month. And it was like 10 years ago. So that's expensive. And I made the grave mistake. And mom, if you're watching me, I apologize, but you're horrible with this. I made the grave mistake of allowing my mom to get a hotel room for us because she wanted to spend time with her son. She didn't want to live with the friend. Cool. My mom, being who she is, she of course went for the cheapest option, which was in the ghetto. So I get on the train with that friend so that he can show me the hotel. And I remember being like in the New York subway, and we're going through Manhattan, and we're going through the suburbs, and we're going through like neighborhoods. At that time, I'm 21, 22. And then we start to like go through places that look abandoned. Like they look like old like factories where no one is around. And I remember my friend looking at me like, huh, what did you say you were staying again? And it was a place in Brooklyn that was essentially like in the heart of the ghetto. This was not gentrified Brooklyn. This was not Jewish Brooklyn. This was like Brooklyn, Brooklyn. And so we get just like getting off of the subway, the vibe. Like I could tell, okay, this is a shady place. Just looking around, there was like a guy on the side of the street selling like Christmas trees on the black market. This wasn't your family friendly, like buy a Christmas tree. It was you have no money and your check hasn't dropped yet. Here's a tree that I stole somewhere in like New Jersey. That was the vibe. Go to my hotel. The hotel looks of course disgusting. There is like people selling drugs on the same streets as the hotel. You get into the hotel, so it reeks of weed. The buffet for breakfast was, I shit you not, a bowl with like eggs in them, like boiled eggs. And that was it. That was the extent of the buffet that we paid for. I remember looking at my mom and being like, really? Was it worth saving $200 for this? Like, we're gonna get stabbed. You realize that we're the like only tourist in the hotel because no tourist would ever go there. The room was disgusting. There was like a fire alarm. People would scream in the hallway. Just a nightmare. Horrible. But that's not why I hated New York. That was already bad enough. It was a bad start. The part that made me incredibly mad, but also like made me detest New Yorkers, is when I visited the Empire State Building with my mom. For those of you who know, the Empire State Building has a rooftop that you can visit that is beautiful because you have a view of the city. But before getting to the rooftop, you have to go through the building and you have to go through the museum. And that's not bad. I like museums. But when you get through the museum, you eventually reach a point in the museum where there is a little theater. Anyone who has visited know exactly what I'm talking about. And you have little benches and little seats for people who want to sit and they can watch a documentary about the museum. Okay? Cool. Past that room is a staircase, and then you get to the rooftop. We do the museum thing, and we get to the room. The movie is playing, and the seats are empty. But there is a queue. In front of me, there is a queue. There's a line of people. And I remember thinking that's very, very weird because I remember the guide saying that there is no queue. Either you stay in the room and you watch the movie, or you go past the room and you go up the rooftop, and that's it. And people are not moving. And I shit you not, I hate queues. So it was, of course, part for the course. And I shit you not, we wait 15 minutes and we haven't moved. Like, not one person has moved. And worse than that, no one is watching the fucking documentary. They're just like this. They're just like staring straight. And I remember like thinking, are these lemmings? Is this a simulation? What the fuck is going on? So at some point, I just take my mom and I just go around the queue, and people are like, oh, he's keeping the queue. I'm like, that's not a fucking queue. And I get to the top of the queue, and right there, right fucking there is a guy who works for the museum. And I asked the guy, do we have to wait to get to the rooftop? Is that a queue? And he's like, no queue. And I'm like, why are these people waiting then? And he's like, I don't know. I told them that it wasn't a queue. And I remember like, okay, well then I'm going. And I'm going. And as I'm going, some schmuck puts his hand on my shoulder. Like some dude with his family, like, hey, we've been waiting. I'm like, yeah, you've been waiting because you're a fucking idiot. The guy just told you this is not a queue. Why are you stopping? And he's like, oh, fuck you. And I just go through. And essentially what we saw is, iPad just said it, real life NPCs. We had a few people who got into that room and for some reason thought, oh, it must be where we have to wait because they saw a guide. And then people behind them just started to queue without knowing that there wasn't a queue. And before you know it, it created like a social movement where everyone was like, oh, we have to queue, even though there was no announcements and people weren't moving forward. So the catalyst of them realizing there's no queue, I can actually go to the rooftop, is me. It took me to be like, no, you are a moron. The guy told you there's no queue. This room is for people who want to watch the movie. You can just go up. And people after that just followed me. But it scared me. I was like, Jesus Christ. Like that, the herd mentality on display here. Apply this to any other aspects of society, and then you realize why it's so easy to manipulate people. If you manipulate one or two, they're going to then manipulate the rest. And this time, it was no media, it was no propaganda. It was literally just two people queuing, and that was enough for people to wait. They would have waited 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour without me. Insane. So that was New York. Hated it. Hated that city. And then what? Oh, you go to New York. French people love to go to New York for what? To see big buildings. We have big buildings too. There's like this city. I was like, well, that's not America. Like, I've been to America. I've been to many cities. Some of them are great. Fuck New York. I will never set foot here again. It's expensive. Fuck it. All right. That was why I hate New York. Now we have the story of the Riptide, the story of the Tick, and we have the story of the apparitions as a kid. And then we're going to wrap up the stream. Which one do you want? Operation Tick, Operation Riptide, Operation. Okay, many operations. We're going to get to the operation. So I'm going to try and make this one justice because it's very, very spooky. It's not long, but it's very, very spooky. So when I was a kid, a young kid, I used to have nightmares. And I used to have nightmares every single night, which I know is fairly common for kids. But my nightmares were of a specific origin and specific type because they were triggered by a toy that I used to have. And interestingly enough, I used to have the clown toy. And you could think that would be the catalyst. It wasn't. The clown was just fine. I had another toy that was a bird. And maybe some of you guys had that toy. It was a yellow bird that looks a bit like Big Bird from Sesame Street. It's long with a long neck and a beak, and it's all fluffy and all yellow. That toy used to terrorize the fuck out of me because it would come out of my closet at night. Nightmare or not, I remember being a kid, being in my bed, and the closet would open and the bird would like poke its head. And it was a puppet. It was attached to strings. So I would see the head of the bird through, but I wouldn't see the inside of the closet, and it would like dance for me. And it was scary. So I used to have a habit where I would get on my bed and say, Maman, Maman, essentially like mom, mom, because I was afraid because if I were to like join her, I would have to go past the bird. And I didn't want to get close to the bird. I knew it was bad luck. And this happened all the fucking time. And if the bird didn't do that, what I would get instead is a nightmare. And the nightmare is as follows. I am with my class, and I'm 5 or 6 years old, okay? And we are all under a bridge made of bricks. And we're all eating lunch. So most likely we are out like in an expedition or something. And as I'm eating my lunch, I realized something. I realized that some of my classmates seem to, in a sense, power off. So they're like this, they're having a good time talking to people, and then they go like this. Like exactly that motion where their head tilts, and then they're like this, and they look unconscious or even dead. And I'm facing a row of these people because, again, we're under a bridge, and I'm seeing from my peripherals that people on my side drop, like their heads drop. And I don't understand what's going on. But eventually I realize at some point, because of an angle, that behind one of the kid, a brick gets removed. And through the brick comes the bird. And the bird sneaks its head behind the kid and bites them at the neck. And he like bites them here and he crushes like their cervical spine. He crushes their neck. And when he does that, the kid dies. It just kills the kid. And then the bird goes back into the wall, takes the brick, puts it back, and does it to another kid. And as I'm here, I'm like, holy fuck. Because I realize that it's in order. And so I see the kids like fall in order, and I know it's going to come to me. eventually. And the nightmare is this: I'm stuck in place, I cannot move, and I know it's coming for me. And eventually I hear the noise of the brick removed behind me, and I feel the bite. And when I feel the bite, I wake up. This is the reason why I used to bother my mom, because I wanted to sleep with her, because her bed had a frame. My bed didn't have a frame. And the frame, because it was behind my neck, told me that I was protected, because in my dream, the bird could get to me because my bed didn't have a frame. And every time I would sleep in my mom's bed, there would be no nightmares. So I spent most of the time in that bed. That is the start. That bird terrified me. One day, that bird disappeared, meaning that I don't know where it went. Maybe it was tossed away. It could be because I was getting older, but it disappeared. But my freaky relationship with birds didn't end there. The hauntings were replaced, and the bird was replaced by a different bird that I called le dindon. In my head, that's what I called it. And le dindon means like turkey. We're not talking about a nice turkey that you roast for Thanksgiving. Le dindon was an apparition that was like, give or take 4 feet tall, very black, and it was like a weird, fucked up turkey with human hands and human arms. That was essentially terrifying me. So this thing would appear in my room, it would appear in my nightmares, and worse than that, it would knock on my door. Meaning that at night, I would hear on my door, and I knew it wasn't my mom. Because why the fuck would my mom do that at 3 a.m.? And this thing would either just knock and terrify me, or it would open the door and I would see it through the door. So this is how I saw most of it, this apparition. It was through the cracks of doors, or, and this was the one that scared me the most, we used to have a living room, and then there was a corridor in my room. And when you get into the corridor, le couloir in French, you turn on the light. Every single time what would happen is that I would get into the corridor, turn, and I would see the silhouette of the bird, and I would turn on the light and it would disappear. This escalated because eventually I got physical proofs of the manifestation, because one time a note was slipped under my door. And that note said something like about le dindon, about the bird. Unless my mom was pranking me, I don't know like what could do this, but it fucking terrified me. And so from that day on, like I kept being obsessed with that thing and seeing that thing everywhere. And like it would, like I would be in a car and I just remembered the scariest thing that happened with me related to that. It just came back to me, and it like I have goosebumps just thinking back about it. One time, we're traveling by car. We're going to Spain. I'm 9 years old, and my mom is driving. And I remember just looking by the window because I'm bored, and we stop level with another car because there is like traffic, and I see through the window that there's a little girl in the other car with like dark hair. And I remember looking at her, and she turned her head and put her head on the window, and it was the thing. And it was like it had like a bird's face, all like melting with like long hair, and it like looked at me like this. And I remember like I didn't even make a noise. I was like terrified. Yeah. So God forbid women do anything. So that's that. This thing followed me around. Like I saw it when I was 22 or 23. I remember I was taking a shower. I was taking a shower in the trap house, and that door of the shower used to have like one of these glass panels at the top that is like blurry so that you cannot see through. And I remember taking a shower and like going out of the shower and looking up, and through that window I saw the apparition looking at me with its melting, like disgusting bird face. But I haven't seen it in a while. Yeah. So that was that. That's the story of the apparitions. D something dindon means turkey. I don't know why I name it that, but I know that as a kid, that's what it named itself. Le dindon, the turkey. Le dindon. Yeah, it followed me to America, that fucker. I also saw it in Spain, so it appeared wherever I was. Okay, we have 10 minutes left, and so we're going to wrap up. We have 2 stories left. You have the tick, and you have the riptide, and they're very short stories. Tick, 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 riptide, tick, tick, tick. Okay, riptide. Let's do the riptide. The riptide. This one is going to also paint me in a much stupider light than I would like to be presented, but I'm pretty stupid. So I went to Miami with my mom. This time I picked the Airbnb, so it was a very nice place, surprisingly, when you're not trying to be cheap as fuck. And we just spent that time to go to the beach. We would go to the swimming pool. It was very nice. Florida was very nice, except for the fact that Latinos drive like maniacs. They drive well, but they drive like complete maniacs. Down in Florida, you get honked at if you're not doing anything illegal. Like you won't turn on red, people will honk at you until you turn on red. But it was good. It was good. We also went to Miami Beach, which holy fuck, how expensive is this place? A turkey sandwich was like $22. I looked at the guy, $22 for a turkey sandwich. No, thank you. I will eat sand. But anyways, at some point we go to a beach that is a very nice hidden beach, and I can see that the water is pretty rough. But me being me, I'm hyper confident in the water because I'm a strong swimmer. So we show up. My mom is like just taking the sun, and I go into the water. I see that there's no one in the water. And I see with my own two eyes that clearly is because the water is way too rough, but I don't care. I start to swim, I start to swim, I start to swim. And at some point, I get to a patch where my feet stop touching the floor, the ground, the seabed. The second I do that, I feel my entire body being dragged towards the ocean. And it was not like, oh, I'm slowly being lured in. It felt like a hand wrapped around my waist and just pulled me, and I couldn't resist it. That is a riptide. It's what happens when you have the current that comes like this. It hits the beach and it goes back like this. So if you swim here and you get caught in it, it sucks you in and it pulls you towards the sea. It was my first time experiencing what it feels like. I panicked immediately because I felt like I was going to die. Like the second I felt that pull, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna die. Like this is how I die. And I remember this is what happens when you're like on death door. Your like acuity is sharpened. I remember seeing the guard rush down his tower to get in the water to save me, but it was way too far. I was going to die. So I told myself, okay, I have one shot. And back then, I didn't know about the strategies of how to get outside of a riptide, that you're supposed to swim. All of that to me is nonsense because the second you feel the pull of the ocean, all of that goes out of the window. Your survival instincts kick in. And the number one thing you're going to do always is you're going to crawl as much as you can with as much energy as you can towards the beach. I'm not swimming across the beach. I want the sand. I want the beach. So I started, and I'm a pretty powerful swimmer. So I started like giving it out my all. My shoulders, my back was killing me. I was not moving. I was like this. My arms were like dragging the water. I was stationary. I was not moving. And I was like, yep, that's it. I will eventually run out of stamina, and then the sea will be able to pull me. But then, insane streak of luck, as my feet were going and pedaling to get me out of the riptide, my foot hit what is the term? The seabed, but there was like a bunch of sand that had created like a reef almost, where there was like sand that was like bulky. So my foot caught onto that. And when it caught onto that, it gave me enough traction to push myself forward, a sandbank, exactly, to push myself forward to get out of the riptide enough that my torso came out of the water. And when my torso came out of the water had less grip on me, and so I was able to like crawl myself to the beach. And I might have like swam towards the beach for less than 10 seconds, like straight less than 10 seconds. I have never been more tired in my life. The fear of dying and the raw stamina it took to just prevent the sea from dragging me. I was on my knees on the sand, just touching the sand, like just like being mesmerized by the fact that I was on land and I couldn't move. I was just spent. And I remember the guy, the lifeguard, coming up to me and being like, "Yeah, that's a riptide. You got very lucky." Because usually people don't put themselves out of that. And there was also another dude who was like, "Yeah, when I saw your head come up under the water, I was like, he's gone. You're gonna die." And that guy was a surfer who had been surfing that beach for like 25 years, and he told me, "Yeah, I don't even surf here anymore because the riptides are way too dangerous. Like, you should have died. Realistically, you got insanely lucky." Also, my glasses didn't fall; they managed to stay on my head, so that's also very lucky. So yeah, now I don't fuck with the ocean anymore. I'm very, very careful. Are you a cat, perchance? Maybe. I might be a cat. Do you have siblings? No siblings. All the love and affection for me. When did the coral reef with the blonde girl happen? Which is another Halloween story where I saw an apparition of what I think was a ghost. It was when I was 11. I think I say that in the story. Okay, you swam with glasses? Yes, I do everything with glasses. I lift with glasses. Okay, and then we're going to do the last story. I'm going to leave you. So the last story is not as drastic, but I almost died still. It was in Spain. Fuck. Okay, well, it was in Spain. Now you know that the place where my family is in Spain. Okay, that's it. That's it. I think most people have figured it out from me even speaking it. I was in Spain, and I was on an island, and and the island was very like wild, and I was going through the brush, and at some point, I think I got bitten by a tick when I was going through the brush, which is why you should not be doing that. And then we went back home. We left the island, and I got sicker than I've ever been in my life. Where I was shitting my brains out. I could not keep anything down, and usually that lasts for like a day, 2 days. Really bad diarrhea, 3 days. This lasted for 7 days. 7 days where every single day I would empty myself, and I was like actively losing weight, being dehydrated, and people were not really worried about it. Like, I remember my mom just thinking, "Yeah, you have the shit." And I was like, "No, that's not the shit. That's something else. Like, I have a wasting disease, and clearly you're not super concerned about it." My mom is funny like that. She'll worry about things that don't matter, and then when I'm about to die, like when we went to the Caribbean and I almost drowned, she's like, who cares?" But yeah, I knew that there was something wrong with me, but I couldn't figure it out. And then one day, I'm in the bathroom and I see something like here that's like a black spot. Lots of black things in my life. Weird. Maybe here. Like I think it was like in my upper chest, and it was like a black dot. And I remember thinking for some reason that it was like a rock. I don't know, like a rock lodged in me. And so I observed it, and the more I observed it, the more I was like, that looks like a bug. I think that that's a bug. And so I took a pair of like tweezers and I like pulled, and it was like it wouldn't let go. It was like deep, like hanging on to me. And I pulled and pulled and pulled, and I eventually managed to pull, and it was a tick. It was a huge, like it was like gorged with my blood, a black tick. And once I did that, all of the symptoms went away. So I don't know what disease it was. It wasn't Lyme disease, but it was pretty fucking disgusting. So that's that. That is the end of the stream. It was fun. I didn't see the 3 hours and 30 minutes go by. No, I don't have Lyme disease. So that's all cool. If you're part of the people who are going to watch this as a replay, I would really appreciate it if you could do the timestamps. It would be great if every single story had the timestamp of each story, because it would make it much easier for people to revisit the stream, because, of course, it's going to be re-uploaded immediately. So that was that. Do you have other stories for the stream? I'm certain that I do. But I'm going to have to like write it down. So I don't know when that next stream will happen. Maybe for Christmas, maybe not. We'll see. That's it. If you enjoyed it, first off, thank you for being there. It was great. I had a fun time. To support the channel, coffee page, pledge. That's great. You got a video yesterday. So if you haven't watched the video yet and you want more content, go watch the video. It's a good video. This week, I'm going to drop, hopefully, the essay, the philosophical essay about incels. On Thursday, you get the community post for the physics review. So if you want your physics reviewed, you're going to have to be on the ball on Thursday, because I'm going to take 20 people and not one more. After that, if you want written physics reviews, they're always available on the coffee page. You just have to ask. And then we're going to have the stream on Saturday for the physique. So that's that. That's going to be the start of our month of December. You will also get the schedule for the month of December for the streams. And this month, if I'm not mistaken, you get a physics review stream, you get an hypertrophy stream, you get a dating Q&A stream, you get another physics stream at the end of the month. So you're getting spoiled. You're also getting a young stream, and you'll get a dream analysis stream. I'm going to up the frequency both of video releases and both of my streaming, because we are leading up to a big announcement for the channel that is going to come in January, something that many people have been waiting for. And now that I'm technically not working for big corporations anymore, it's something that I become able to do. So we'll see when we get there. But that is that. Je vous fais des gros bisous à tous et je vous verrai très bientôt. Mouah.